I am going to read for 2 hours, so hopefully you will be able to enjoy this read. If this is your first time watching and you're watching a replay, thank you. You may want to go back and watch parts 1 through 3. I do readings. I used to do them on TikTok and I moved them to YouTube. So the book that we're reading is the book for the book club. We have been slow dragging this book. I wish that I could read every night, but life has been getting in the way. I go to the gym early in the morning and I just be tired. Today was my day to sleep in, so I want to start a little bit early. I normally start at 12:30 a.m. So today we're starting at 9:40 p.m. Um, Let me see if my person is up. This book has been really good. It's like slow draw. It's supposed to be like a mystery thriller type sense. It's about the elite women of Buckhead, Atlanta. Someone winds up unalived, and we're trying to find out who's unalive, and we're also trying to find out who did it. It's like given like how those reality TV housewife shows are. That's the vibe that I'm getting from it. But yeah. The last thing, I'm gonna try to give you like a recap of just who the characters are, because hopefully, you have listened to the other ones and you can just like bulldoze from here on out. But hold on, we have Jenny. She's the owner of Glow. We have Keisha, who's Jenny's friend. She's like a nail stylist, I believe. We have Karen, who is married to her husband Mark. Karen is a real estate agent. She has her own company. Mark is a plastic surgeon. Together, they have a 5-year-old son named Riley. We have Olivia. Olivia is kind of like the housewife that just be going around buying everything. She's uppity. She believes she's better than everybody else, and she's married to Dean. We have Shannon, who was previously married to Bryce. Bryce divorced Shannon so that he could be with a younger woman who's 25, whose name is Crystal. So Crystal comes onto the scene as the home wrecker. When she first met Bryce, she didn't know that he was married, but he eventually got divorced and he married her. So Shannon is delusional. She has this thought that her and Bryce are going to get back together. A lot of stuff going on. The last thing we left off at was a little steamy. We had Karen and Keisha who shared an intimate moment. Now Shannon is going to come into the salon on the next chapter. Let's get it started. Um, ooh, where I'd be like, um, oh, where did it go? Okay, chapter 25. Shannon. I marched right into the salon. No one was at the front desk, so I called out and saw myself to the back. Pushing the black curtain to the side, I had wasted no time. I was a woman on a mission. I had apologies to make and a life to turn around. It was dead quiet when I entered the back area. Then I heard giggles from the tanning room. Keisha came out first, her feet a strange brown and orange color, and a wide smile plastered on her face. Did you miss the target? I pointed at her feet. She looked down. The machine malfunctioned and spilled, she said with a laugh. Did you have an appointment? Nope. I need nothing done, just lemonade, and I owe you an apology. I took a seat on one of the pedicure chairs. Keisha, I'm sorry. I should have never acted the way I did yesterday. You are forgiven. And lemonade, you got it, she said, pointing at me. She poured me a glass and handed it over. I'll turn over the bubbles, Keisha added. I slid my feet into the warm water. That was easier than I thought it would be. But then again, Keisha was never one to hold grudges. She was carefree and a breath of fresh air in this town. I knew she had seen the video, but she pretended she hadn't. Keisha was good like that. She could forgive and forget. Karen emerged from the spray tan room, her skin flushed. Her lips were plump and her eyes lit up. She smiled as she walked in a white tank top and blue jean shorts, and I noticed her feet were orange and blotchy too. Spray tan machine get you too? I see, I said, staring at her feet. She looked down and blushed. Yeah, it malfunctioned in the middle of my session. That's what Keisha was saying, I confirmed. You're staying, right? Yeah, I was going to get a pedicure. She glanced at Keisha with a half smile. Great, have a seat next to me. We have loads to talk about. I patted the chair beside me. Karen climbed into it. Keisha brought her a glass of lemonade and filled her foot tub. I turned on the massager on my chair, and Karen did the same. Are you okay? You seem to be in a much better mood today. Karen commented. Her eyes bounced over to me. Keisha picked up Karen's foot and massaged it ever so tenderly, paying special attention to each of her toes. I think I am, I nodded. The video was taken down. I know, thank you, I said with a small smile. How are you feeling about everything that happened? Keisha asked. Good, I said. They both smiled at me, and not good. They both frowned. Why the former? Karen asked. And why the latter? Keisha asked. They gave each other a look of understanding and me a look of compassion. Why were they finishing each other's sentences? I wanted to assure them that I was fine, that I was better than fine, that I was grateful for being able to see myself the way others had seen me. It was a wake up call and a tough pill to swallow, but I knew that despite how I was feeling right now, embarrassed and pathetic, it would make me a stronger person. It made me realize that I didn't need Bryce, that I could be confident and powerful all on my own. Just as soon as I got my stuff together, I needed a makeover, not for looks, but for life. Good, because I realized I don't need a man to be me. Not good, because it takes two completely humiliated incidents and a semi-viral video to learn that. I gripped my glass a little tighter, then took a deep breath and let the tension flow out of me. They exchanged concerned glances. I think it's great that you know that you don't need a man to be you and to be happy. Keisha encouraged while massaging the top of Karen's foot, her toes curled in ecstasy. I never said I was happy. I took a large drink, swallowing so quickly that the gulp hurt the back of my throat. Everything was so hard to swallow these days. Okay then, you don't need a man to be you, Keisha corrected. I called Karen, wink at her. I wasn't sure why she did that, but I thought it was cute. I had been a fan of women supporting other women before Crystal came along, so to see this sweet exchange brought me a little joy. I wanted more of that in my life, and I hated that I had started to become a person who despised other women. I didn't want that. But sometimes you become the person you hate the most. And who cares about all those people? Karen piped in. I do, I said. Yes, yes, but you can prove them all wrong. Prove that what they thought about you and what they thought about Bryce was wrong, she added. You're right, I guess. But how? They all think that I'm a joke now, a has-been, a washed-up divorcee, an ex-chairwoman. Karen and Keisha gave me sympathetic looks. Being yourself is the strongest, most powerful thing that you can do. It's like signing your autograph on something you created. You're saying, this is me. I'm so effing proud of it. I'm proud of me, Karen explained with so much conviction in her voice, she could have led a riot. Where did this come from? She had always been outspoken, but not with this much confidence. Whoever this new Karen was, I liked her. I reached over and grabbed her hand and squeezed it, exchanging a pleased look with her. Last night, everything felt like it was going to hell, but tonight things have felt a little bit better. Like everything was going to be okay. Life was funny that way. Living in Buckhead was like a roller coaster ride. You wait in line for a very long time, and then finally you were in. You were on the ride of a lifetime, but this ride wasn't consistent. It was ever changing. Sometimes you scream, sometimes you be sick to your stomach, sometimes you beg the operator to stop the ride so you can get off. Sometimes you smile and laugh out pure enjoyment. Sometimes you have to hold on tighter than usual for fear of falling off. And sometimes you just let go, waving your arms hands freely without a care in the world. I was letting go, or at the very least, I was starting to. If you're just joining, we are reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Okay. Chapter 30. Crystal. I headed straight to the salon after taking care of some errands and things around the house. I need to talk with all of them. I need to tell them what was happening with Olivia. If you come in being rude, you will get muted and you will get blocked. She wasn't safe with the relationship. I could feel it. I wanted to help her, and I wanted to get the girls to rally with me. I had been in a bad relationship before, an awful one. It nearly destroyed me. From that relationship, I learned that monsters don't change. They can hide who they are, they can morph into something else, but their ugliness never goes away. They're predators to the core. I flung open the doors to the salon and wandered through the curtains, finding Karen and Shannon sitting in pedicure chairs sipping lemonade, while Keisha massaged Karen's feet. They all looked over at me with my heels clacking along the hardwood floor. I would appear Shannon had made peace with them. Perhaps Bryce was telling the truth. Maybe they did agree to move past the gala night and learn to get along. I hoped it was true. I'm so glad you're all here, I exclaimed. Karen and Shannon held up their glasses. I walked over to the pitcher of fresh lemonade and poured myself a glass. So, you saw the video? Shannon tapered to her eyes. What video? I asked. No, I wanted to talk to you about Olivia. Shannon's eyes stayed tight for a moment as she looked over me carefully. Then she relaxed, then took another sip of her drink. I didn't have a clue what she was talking about, but before I could ask, Karen spoke up. What's going on? The back door swung open and in walks Jenny, dressed in white tennis shoes, tan shorts, and striped sleeveless top with turtleneck. She pulled off her sunglasses, revealing a faded black eye. I was almost completely covered with makeup, but I couldn't see it. Hey, Jenny, how are you feeling today? I asked. I poured her a glass of lemonade and handed it to her. Thanks, and I'm fine. Even the doctor says so. She nodded and brought the glass to her lips, taking a long drink. No need to be tough, Jenny. We're all here for you. Whatever you need, Shannon said. Seriously, please don't worry about me. Jenny took her cross bag off her bag and placed it on the back of her salon chair. Then she began tidying up. She was always cleaning, even though the salon was spotless. Crystal was just about to tell us something about Olivia, Keisha said, changing the subject. Can we go on one day without hearing about or from Olivia? Shannon asked. Be nice, Karen patted Shannon's hand. No, she has it in for me, Shannon shook her head. You were saying, Crystal? Karen added. Jenny stopped cleaning to give me her full attention, and Keisha stood up and from massaging Karen's feet and wiped up some of the water that had spilt on the floor. Wait, hold on, Shannon put her hand up. Jenny, I want to apologize for my behavior yesterday. I'm sorry. It's fine, Shannon, Jenny nodded. Are you going to apologize to Crystal? Karen whispered, although it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Shannon shook her head again. Anyway, you were saying, Crystal? The talk Bryson she had didn't go well enough for her to apologize to me, but I'd taken what I could get with Shannon. At least she was acknowledging me. I had drinks with Olivia last night and she said something about Dean, and I'm just worried about her. I fiddled with my glass and took a small sip and then clutched it tightly. Shannon adjusted her feet. Well, what did she say exactly? She said she was scared, that Dean had never been physical with her before the night of the gala, and he had been verbally abusive, and she was afraid of him one day taking it too far. This might have been out of line, but it was more than likely Olivia would be handing out the beatings. Not Dean, Shannon said with a laugh. I let out a huff of annoyance and tapped my foot on the floor repeatedly. I drank my whole glass of lemonade and then poured myself another. Now, ladies, Olivia's our friend. If she's in trouble, we should be there for her, Jenny said. Like she was there for me when my husband left me for her? Shannon pointed at me. I took another large gulp of lemonade. Let's not get hung up on the past, Karen said. The past? What do you mean the past? The effing past is standing right here, Shannon pointed at me again. There was no way I was going to get to them. Shannon was clearly mad about something. Karen was a bit more understanding. You know what? If you ask me, Olivia could use a good beating. Shannon cackled. Oh my goodness. Jenny, Keisha, and Karen and I held our breath at her comment and just stared. Anyway, I really think that we should try to be supportive and encouraging of Olivia. I took a seat in a salon chair, crossing one leg over the other. They all looked at each other, waiting for someone to speak up. I bounced my foot up and down, hoping that they would get on board. I knew Olivia was no ray of sunshine, but women needed to stick together. Perhaps Olivia's behavior was a result of her toxic relationship with Dean. I didn't know her well enough to know otherwise, but I tried to see the good in people. There had to be good in Olivia. I don't think Olivia needs any encouraging, Shannon raised an eyebrow. Jenny waved a hand as Shannon dismissed her comment. I'll give Olivia a call today and make sure she comes to Manny's and Mimosas tomorrow morning. That's great, Jenny, I smiled. I'll try to be nice, Shannon added, but it was unconvincing. I nodded at her. I'll make sure she feels welcome, Karen says, and I'll make sure you're all tipsy enough to tolerate her tomorrow, Keisha said with a laugh. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. If you're just joining, we're reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Chapter 31. Jenny. Present. Splashing some water on my face, I glanced at myself in the mirror of the sterile bathroom. Although I'm looking at my reflection, all I can see is through it. I quickly applied some lip balm to dry my lips and pulled my hair from its ponytail, running my hands through it to give it some life. I don't know how I got dragged into all of this. I should have kept my distance from these women. I should have stuck to my role as the help, rather than become a confidant or a friend. What was I thinking? Inside the interrogation room, I take a seat again. It's mere seconds later that Detective Sanford enters the room. He shuts the door behind him and sits across from me. He drops his notepad on the table and scans over his notes. Now, where were we? Sanford tapped his pen on the paper. Oh, yes, that's right. Olivia and Dean. Tell me more about that. He looks at me, the corner of his eye slightly wrinkling. There were definitely marital problems between them, I say. Did Olivia tell you that? She told all of us that. He scribbles down some more notes. The day Crystal came into the salon and explained what Olivia told her about Dean, it seemed like all the women were getting along again, or at least were planning to. That's right, I nod. My lips form a straight line. Then, what happened? He taps his pen on the table. The husbands happened. Chapter 32. Jenny. Keisha and I were prepping for our monthly Manny and Mimosas event, setting out fresh fruit, baked goods, and putting champagne and orange juice in ice. I had resorted to biting my nails early that morning and fidgeting with everything in sight, including adjusting and straightening up the station at least 7 times. After the break-in, I felt uneasy. The salon didn't feel like it was mine anymore. I felt violated. Sure, the building was still standing and Glow was back to its pristine condition, but it just felt like everything had been taken from me. Keisha rubbed my shoulders as she passed by, her way of ensuring I was okay. I knew she was worried about me because I wouldn't talk to her about what happened. I wanted to forget it. Although I pretended like it wasn't on my mind, it was. Sometimes I flash right back to the moment when I was gasping for my last breath. My life felt like a nightmare, only I was awake for it. How do you think that it'll go today? Keisha asked. I pulled my fingers from my mouth. I think it'll go well, or at least I hope it does. Mary, the salon assistant, popped in with a fresh carafe of coffee from a local coffee shop and set it on the table. I'm not sure why we even provided it. No one ever drank the coffee anyway. It was all about the mimosas. We kept a few contract manicurists on the event on for events like this. Mary escorted them in and they began to set up their stations. They mostly kept them to themselves, but they did great work. Several bottles of nail polish slid from one of the manicurist's kits onto the floor with a crash. My body jumped and my shoulders tightened. I felt like I was always on edge now. The manicurist apologized, cleaning up. You ready for this? Keisha said, looking me in the eye. Ready as I'll ever be. I gave an unconvincing smile. Should we have hired security? Keisha laughed. That would have been a bad idea. The front bell jingled. In walked Shannon, wearing a Chanel top and Givenchy black linen pants. She pulled off her oversized product sunglasses in a dramatic fashion. Hello, ladies. I'm ready for manis and mugshots. She laughed. I'm kidding. I'm sure we'll all be on our best behavior. Shannon greeted us and immediately walked to the snack table, grabbing a croissant and pouring herself a cup of coffee, which surprised me. Like I said, no one ever else drank coffee. She was changing, or at least trying to, and she was already doing so much better now that she was focused on herself instead of Bryce. One of our manicurists began working on Shannon's left hand. When the guest of honor arrived, Shannon raised an eyebrow. Be nice, I said as I straightened up the food and beverage. I'm always nice, except when I'm not, she snickered. You doing okay, Jenny? I let out a quiet huff. I was tired of people asking if I was okay. I always said I was, even though I knew I wasn't. I didn't like all the attention on me, which is why I wore a turtleneck again today and used our thickest concealer to cover my eye. My lip had healed nicely, just a little swollen, so it looked as though I had recent lip injections. Yes, I'm fine, I finally said. The front door chimed, and moments later in walked Karen wearing yoga pants, sandals, and a tank top. Her hair was tied back in a low ponytail, and although she was in workout clothes, she had clearly put in an effort as her face was in full makeup, natural looking but still full. Karen walked over to Shannon, giving her a partial hug, and then she did the same to me. Her hug was a little longer than usual. That's what I got now, long hugs and are you okays. She nodded at Keisha and gave her a coy smile. They must have bonded at the gala. Plus, yesterday was the first time Karen had her spray tan done by anyone other than me. Although she didn't look any more tan, Keisha poured Karen a mimosa. They were becoming friends. Good. At least some people were getting along. You're dressed for the gym, Karen. Did you intend on breaking a sweat at this soiree? Shannon chuckled. No, there won't be any fighting today. We're all grown women. We're classy and we can be civil, Karen assured. Classy? Keisha laughed. Ish, Karen said as she shrugged her shoulders. Keisha grabbed her hands and began massaging lotion into them. The front door chimed, and I heard one set of heels and one set of sandals make their way quickly from the front area to just before the curtains. They were faint whispers, and then, all at once, the black curtains burst open, flooding the room with natural light. I let out the breath that I didn't even realize I was holding. I pulled my shoulders back and smiled. This was my salon, and it was all I had left in the world. In walked Olivia, wearing a red skirt and a white long sleeve top, followed by Crystal. Olivia gave a big toothy grin. I'm so glad we could all get together at this soiree, Shannon chuckled. No, there won't be any fighting today. Oh, wait. Sorry, I didn't. I'm so glad that we could all get together, she declared. You're looking so much better, Jenny. You were unsightly before. Dang, she be getting on my nerve. Olivia, she be like coming at people and they ain't even do nothing to, like, she just gotta walk in and be nasty nice. Hold on. We're getting all of the people who have a lot of balls to say something online but will never say nothing to nobody in person. Hey, Pablo. Oh, she was talking to Jenny. You're looking so much better, Jenny. You were unsightly before, Olivia said with air kisses on each side of my cheek. I could always count on Olivia for her brutal honesty. Thanks, I said. I'm feeling much better too, I lied. Shannon, I hope you're not still upset with me. Olivia brought her hand to her chest. It devastated me how the gala ended. Unfortunately, I don't think people will ever forget that. She shook her head. I'm perfectly fine, Olivia. Shannon rolled her eyes. You're so strong. After that, I could never show my face again, she said with a laugh. Shannon leaned forward in her seat like she was about to fight. But I gave her a stern look and she readjusted herself in her chair. She poured her lips back into a smile, almost like a ventriloquist puppet would. Crystal gave everyone a hug except Shannon. She had started to lean in, but Shannon gave her a look like a mother gives to a child when it's about to do something wrong. A don't you effing dare look. Crystal recoiled and nodded instead. Shannon nodded back and took a sip of her coffee. So they were still on tender hooks with one another. That was to be expected, as getting along with your ex-husband's new wife took time, lots of time. Crystal sat down at a nail station across from Karen. Olivia planted herself in front of Shannon. I should have had the contract manicurist make a straight line of these stations today, rather than having two lines across from each other. With this group set up, some cattiness was inevitable, especially with the alcohol. I should have made it a dry event too, mayonnaise and milk, or mayonnaise and melons. What was I thinking? It was too late for should haves and would haves. I was going to get through this, and I was going to ensure these women got through it too. I grabbed a pitcher of mimosas and made my way around the room, topping off the glasses. Is anyone else coming? Shannon asked, glancing at the clock. It was 9:15. Mayonnaise and mimosas had started 15 minutes prior, and it was odd that none of my other clients had arrived. I'm sure there are, I said, placing the empty pitcher down. They're not, Olivia piped in as one of the manicurists filed down her talons. What do you mean they're not coming? Shannon's brow furrowed and her lips pursed together. I told all of your other clients that this was a closed event. I figured we needed time for needed time for just us today. Olivia smiled. How you gon' What do you think that gives you the right to do that? Keisha's words cut through the Senate air. I'm a top client here and an angel investor. Olivia jutted her chin up. Keisha stood beside Karen. Crap. I thought they only had to worry about Olivia and Shannon. I completely forgot about how overprotective Keisha was being with me since the break-in. She treated me like I would fall apart at any moment because she knew me best. Just as Keisha took a step towards where Olivia was seated, Karen grabbed her by the hand and said, I need a wax. Keisha stopped dead in her tracks. She looked back at her hand, the same one that Karen was holding. She glanced up at Karen and took a deep breath. Karen nodded and gave an encouraging smile. Right this way, Keisha said, leading her down the hallway to the waxing room. Thank God for Karen. I'm not sure if I would have been able to defuse that. I knew Keisha had had enough of Olivia and was tired of her trying to walk all over everyone. Olivia's eyes lit up with a job well done attitude. I had had enough of her too, but she was right. She was a top client and an investor. I wouldn't say angel, more demonic. So I did what I always did. I put a smile on and I took care of her. If you're just joining, we're reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Chapter 33, Karen. I followed Keisha into the waxing room. It was small and brightly lit with a massage table in the center of it. A few cabinets lined the walls. As Keisha closed the door behind us, she let out a deep breath and I held mine for a moment, just long enough to have a few doubts slither across my mind. Was I doing the right thing? Did right and wrong even matter? Was I ready to throw away the life that I had? Was there a life to even throw away? I hadn't been happy in so long for I forgot what happy was until Keisha. The thoughts disappeared faster than they surfaced, and I exhaled the doubts. I saved you, I said, pulling my hair free from his ponytail and twirling a piece of it around my finger. The only person you're saving is Olivia from me kicking her bony butt. Keisha and I matter of factly before cracking a smile. I know she gets to you. She gets to all of us. I propped up Keisha's chin with the ends of my fingertips, ensuring her icy blue eyes meet mine. Jenny can't handle her BS right now. I know she says she's fine, but she's not, Keisha confessed. Of course she's not. It's only been a few days, I rationalized. Keisha nodded, dropping eye contact for a moment before her eyes returned to me. Typically, I had a hard time looking someone in the eye and holding a gaze. Eye contact such a standard way of communicating, but so difficult to master. I always be the first to look away, to pretend something caught my eye. But not this time. With Keisha, I couldn't look away. Her eyes held everything: my courage, my trust, my fear, my curiosity, my desire. I had thought about little else since our last meeting. I wasn't simply the kiss, incredible though it was, but something more than that. We go through life searching for a sense of belonging, of connection, and so often we're so disappointed. How can anyone even begin to define what draws two people together like magnets? I spent my teenage years reading romance novels, believing in fairy tale versions of love that never quite came to pass for me. So just like that passage in Corinthians, I committed to putting away childish things and settled instead for being a good partner, wife, and mother. I buried that secret place inside of me that longed for real connection, real intimacy. Now, in Keisha's presence, I had begun to question my choices. Perhaps all the love stories of my teenage years were so foolish after all. It's like when you take that leap into a body of unfamiliar water, you have no idea what you're getting into. And that's how I was with Keisha. Would I drown or somehow learn to swim in this new sea? Or would I be thankful after I got out that my feet were planted back on solid ground again? It didn't matter though. None of it mattered. I was going to jump. I could feel my cheeks redden and my heart quicken. My heartbeat quickened. And Olivia doesn't get to me, Keisha said. She doesn't? I raised an eyebrow. You do. Before the words finished echoing throughout the small room, her lips were on mine. They were soft and warm, just like I remembered. Her hand slid the straps of my tank top down on my shoulders, revealing my small breasts. Someone could have walked in at any moment, but I was so lost in the moment that I didn't care. She pushed my red locks back, and her plump lips followed the trace of the fingertips, leaving light cherry red lipstick marks on my neck, shoulders, collarbone, and breast. My breath became ragged and quick. My head spun, my body tensed up. She pushed me back onto the massage table. I fell hard, nearly rolling off. We giggled and then quieted ourselves. She finished removing my tank top, softly rubbing and kissing each one of my breasts. I straightened up on the table as if I were adjusting myself for a bikini wax. Keisha pressed my legs apart. A sinful smile spread across my face as our eyes met. Wrapping and tucking her fingers beneath the waistband of my yoga pants, she pulled them towards her, curling them down my hips. I took a deep breath. We were doing this. Okay. Chapter 34, Crystal. I held the glass ever so gently, careful not to mess up my freshly done manicure. I went for a soft pink color, no acrylics, no fancy designs or bold colors. Just something simple and practical. I raised the mimosa to my lips and took a long drink while one of my manicurists worked on the other hand. So far, so good. We made it past the first potential blow up. I thought for sure Keisha was going to throw Olivia out, but thank Jesus for Karen stepping in. Keisha and Olivia both have strong personalities. Who knows what would have happened? I had no idea Olivia manipulated this event. I was completely out of line, as glow as Jenny's salon, and she should have asked Jenny first. However, in a way, I could see where Olivia was coming from. Maybe she genuinely wanted it to be just us girls. Maybe she wanted to open up about what was going on with her and Dean. It wasn't the best way to do it, but I think that her intentions were good. At least I hope so. The conversation had never really picked up. Remarks were made here and there, but overall, the only noise was from the manicure tools buzzing and the quiet chatter between the contract workers. The tension was so thick that even the hired help felt uncomfortable. Their eyes bounced around the room and then back at the hands they were working on. Jenny continued to tend to the refreshment tables and make small talk when she could. Shannon was sipping that coffee, and Olivia was deep in thought, perhaps figuring out what to say next. I caught your big screen debut, Olivia finally said. Shannon's lips pressed firmly together. It's been taken down. I still don't know what they were talking about. What video? I asked. Don't act like you don't know, Shannon tilted her head. I looked at Jenny, then Olivia, and then back at Shannon. My eyes were wide and bewildered. Anyway, you having any luck on the dating scene, Shannon? Olivia smirked. I took a deep breath. I'm not looking to date right now. I'm focusing on myself. Shannon raised her chin. Good for her. I gave her a slight nod and a smile without realizing it. I hadn't meant for it to be rude. I was proud of her strength, but Shannon glared at me and returned to her coffee. Something was up. I dropped my head and quickly looked away. Well, if you need any help, Olivia pointed at me. Crystal over here is really good at picking men. She threw her head back in laughter. I'm only kidding. Shannon turned red, not from embarrassment, but from anger. I turned red, not from anger, but embarrassment. A vein emerged in the center of Shannon's forehead, and her mouth began to open. Jenny instinctively stepped forward towards Shannon. My body tensed up. Oh, God. This was it. Shannon was going to lose it. What the H was Olivia doing? The front door chimed, interrupting the impending outburst. The door opened with a bang that sucked all the air out of the room, and there lingered was tension. Hello, a man's voice called out, and we all exchanged glances. Olivia's face went white. 1 second, Jenny said as she made her way to the front. Before she could get there, the curtains were burst open, and in walked Dean Petrov. He was dressed in a white bedazzled t-shirt and a pair of Philip Plein jeans. He looked like a real douche. Hey, Jenny, I heard about what happened. You doing all right? He asked. Jenny nodded as Dean walked past her. Hey, baby, Dean said to Olivia. She gave a coy smile as he leaned down to kiss her on the cheek. What are you doing here? Olivia asked. Thought that I'd get myself a manicure too. He winked. This is a women's only event, I said, surprising myself. Dean crinkled his face at me. Well, I paid the exorbitant fees for this place. Jenny, are you fine with me staying? Before Jenny could get a word in edgewise, Olivia spoke up. Of course you can stay, baby. Right, Jenny? Bedazzled t-shirt. Hey, we don't know what he was doing for the day. Jenny and Shannon exchanged glances. Shannon shrugged her shoulders in a I don't care what you do kind of way. Yeah, that's fine. We have plenty of room. Since Olivia decided to make this a private event, Jenny said with a bit of tautness in her voice. Take a seat. She motioned to the chair beside Olivia. Dean sat down with a big grin on his face. I wasn't sure why he was here. What was he keeping an eye on Olivia? Trying to ensure she wouldn't tell us anything he didn't want us to know? I tried to relax my face. I was scowling at him and didn't even realize it. The manicurist began filing his nails and Jenny brought him an IPA. He thanked her and he took a big swig, making a refreshed sound afterwards. What were you ladies talking about before I crashed the party? Dean asked. He looked at each of us. Well, your wife was telling me that I should get dating advice from Crystal since she's so good at picking men. Shannon spat out the words. I knew she wouldn't let go of that dig so easily. It was a low blow and completely uncalled for. Shannon was being as pleasant as she could be, which for a normal person would be a bit cold. But for Shannon, it was rather nice. Sure, she had been particularly warm or welcoming to me, but I wouldn't expect that from her considering our history. She didn't hug me or talk to me, but she did nod. A nod was a start. Dean tightened his eyes. Is that true? Oh, babe, I was just messing around. But seriously, I wouldn't want to see Shannon lonely. Olivia said with unconvincing sincerity. She grazed her long nails down Dean's bicep, stroking his arm gently. I'm sure you're real concerned about my well-being, Olivia, Shannon said sarcastically. I am, Shannon. You're my friend, she said with a devious smile. We have a very different definition of friend then, Shannon fired back. You would know, Olivia quipped. Who wants more mimosas? Jenny interjected. Dean whispered something into Olivia's ear. I couldn't hear what he said, but she immediately stiffened up and dropped her hand from his bicep. She tapped her nails on her glass. Jenny refilled our drinks and took a seat in the pedicure chair across from Shannon. She turned on the bubbles and dipped her feet in the tub. I could see the whole situation was taking a toll on her. She should have taken a week off of work after the robbery. I had no idea how she was handling all of this. My nails had been dry for a while. I was just sitting there monitoring the tension between Shannon and Olivia while also keeping an eye on Dean. I should have just left, but I felt somewhat responsible for what was occurring. My being with Bryce is what had caused the rift between Shannon and Olivia. I didn't understand why, but it would seem that I didn't really understand anything about these women or Buckhead. Did you need anything, Jenny? I asked, cutting through the silence. I'm okay, she said. Let me get you a mimosa, I offered. I got up from my chair and poured her a drink. That's not necessary, Jenny said. I handed it to her. Oh, thank you, Crystal. She accepted the drink with apprehension and took a gulp of it. Are you sure you're okay? I whispered. Her eyes bounced around. She couldn't downplay what happened. I was there. I saw it. It was horrifying. I'm fine, really, she said, taking a sip of her mimosa. I knew she was lying. Okay, push pause. And I do this sometimes where I give my opinion and we can like make suggestions and stuff like that. Like, I know, like, when something happened to you, everybody in their mom want to ask you, are you okay? But, like, stop asking me. That's like if a loved one passed away and you say, are you okay? No, I'm not okay. My mama just died. Like, what? Why would they? The fact that they keep asking, it's not just like one person. She has 4 different women asking her every other 30 minutes, are you okay, Jenny? Are you okay? Like, she's just gonna be like, no, I'm not okay. What you gonna do if she say I'm not okay? 9 times out of 10, when people ask you the question like, "Are you okay?" it's never to really find out if you're okay. It's just because it's the polite thing to do. Anywho, rant over. I knew she was lying, but I didn't want to press any further. We all heal differently. These women needed to learn to get along for Jenny's sake, so I vowed to be the bigger person by leading by example. I was going to bring these 4 grown women back to the basics, elementary school style. Can I get you anything while I'm up, Shannon? I asked with a smile. Yeah, you can give me my house back. Keep the husband. He useless anyway. Shannon waved her hand at me in a dismissive way. I swallowed hard and walked back to my seat. Olivia's mouth fell open and she was about to speak, but Dean gave her a nasty look and she instead filled the open space of her mouth with the lip of her glass, chugging the rest of her drink. Chapter 35. Olivia. I couldn't believe the nerve of Shannon. Where did she get off? She was nothing without Bryce, and she was just sitting there defiant. If Dean weren't here, I put her back in her crappy place. I knew exactly why Dean came. For starters, I invited him. His attendance made it look like he controlled me, and he gained sympathy points from Crystal. Second, I knew how Dean was. I counted on Dean to be Dean, and when he did, people might not see me as the evil one after all. He was tired of me causing trouble. He wanted me to act like a lady, quiet, calm, and collective. He wanted me to fit in with... What the heck? Hold on. He wanted me to fit in with the other women. He wanted me to not bring any attention to us. He had always been so secretive, but lately his secrets were like a shadow over our relationship. I felt in the dark, and I was tired of feeling that way. Dean knew who I was when he married me, fiery, fearless, and a woman who was willing to do whatever it takes to get what she wants. That's why he fell in love with me in the first place. I felt Dean's eyes on me. I looked over and gave him a crooked smile. He smiled back and nodded as if he were pleased with me, like I was some animal or small child that was obeying his silent commands. And that's the thing with looks, though. They're quite deceiving. I felt Crystal's eyes on me. I glanced over at her. She was watching my and Dean's movements intently. It was her pinched forehead, tight pressed lips, and slightly narrow eyes that indicated to me she was concerned. Clearly, our chat the other day had had an impact on her. Good. Then I looked over at Shannon, and I nearly laughed out loud. It was obvious she thought Bryce was responsible for that video. Well, oh, no way. What with the way that she was being so accusatory towards Crystal, but no, it was me. Olivia was the one that posted the video. I take the little secret to the grave. A friend of mine who was at the restaurant caught the whole thing on video and sent it to me. I just couldn't help myself. After all, Shannon had done something similar to me years ago, and I never forgot, nor will I ever. I could tell that video really got to her too. She's different today. Weaker, I think. Hey, is it Portia? I don't want to say your name wrong. Hey. The front door chimed again, and before Jenny could get out of her chair to go and greet the guests, the curtains were drawn through and walked Mark. So then Olivia canceled all the guests and she invited the husbands. If Bryce show up, it's gonna be one. In walked Mark. This should be interesting. Mark was clearly in love with me, and why wouldn't he be? Hey, Mark said, scanning the room. His eyes stopped on Dean and me. What are you doing here? Just enjoying a manicure and drink with my wife, Dean said nonchalantly. What brings you here, Mark? My voice was light and full of seduction. If Dean wanted to play games, I could play games too. Hey, Brittany. Well, Karen and I have hardly seen each other, and I figured I'd join her for a manicure. Lie. Mark glanced around. Where is she? He clearly wanted to see me. I hadn't been in contact with Mark since our last encounter. Even though he had texted me many times, that was also a ploy of mine. Make him wait and he'll never tire of you. She's in the back getting a wax, Shannon piped up. Well, all right, I'll just wait right here. And if that's all right with you, Jenny. Mark took a seat directly across from me. Dean and Mark exchanged prideful looks. Mark's face softened while his eyes met mine. He don't know. He in the back, his wife in the back, getting fellatio. Is it fellatio? No, cunnilingus. Cunnilingus from the from Keisha. Child, they gonna come out the back flushed and stuff. She gonna be like, I thought you were getting a wax. Oh, she was getting waxed, all right. You're late. We've been on live for 40 minutes. But welcome in, Kimmy. You asleep. It's okay. You gotta get that rest. Oh, look up. The more the merrier, I suppose. Jenny's voice trailed off as she pulled her feet out of the tub of the water. She dried them off quickly, grabbing 2 beers and brought them to Dean and Mark. I don't think you need any restrictive surgery, Mark said, staring at Jenny's face. She furrowed her brow. What are you talking about? He swallowed hard. Olivia mentioned that you might be in need of, after the incident. Jenny narrowed her eyes at me. She's mistaken. Oh, honey, I mentioned it to Mark out of concern. That's all, I said with a smile. Jenny forced a small smile and took a seat. She never challenged me again. She was too weak for that now. Karen's getting a wax. You two must have a hot date tonight. I toyed with Mark. He let out a laugh, then coughed and straightened himself in his seat. Actually, no, we don't. Haven't had one of those in a while. Sounds like you're not tending to your wife's needs, Dean snarked. You know better than anyone, Mark retorted. What's that supposed to mean? Dean raised his voice. He frightened the manicurist so much that she jumped back and let out a gasp. He's just messing with you. I placed my hand on Dean's forearm. I tried to calm him down. Mark was walking too close to that line. I took a mental note to punish him later for it. I knew he'd enjoy it. Additional flogs for being a naughty boy. And I'd be sure to charge him extra next time. The money was for the pleasure and to keep his mouth shut. He didn't love Karen, but he wasn't ready to leave her. Oh my goodness. The name of the book is called One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Wow. She was too vanilla for him. I didn't want to be with Mark. I just would like to play. I enjoyed having secrets of my own. Dean shook my hand off his arm. Calm down, Dean, I pouted. Yeah, take it easy, man. I was just messing with you, Mark said. Dean waved his hand dismissively and took a swig of his beer. So how's business been? Dean directed his question to Mark. Busy. Been traveling back and forth to Miami. The office there is surely taking off. Might have to relocate to keep things going this way. He took a swig of his beer. You and Karen are moving? Shannon jumped in. Her face immediately wrinkled up in worry. Of course she'd be sad about that. Karen was basically her only ally in her only lifetime to any sort of social status in this town. As much as I would hate to lose the extra income, I think Mark and Kevin moving would be a blessing for me. We haven't discussed it yet, Mark said matter-of-factly. I think that's exciting. My memory would be a good fit for you two, I said. Mark gave me a somber look. You want us, to move? What do you care what my old lady wants? Dean raised an eyebrow. Obviously because I'm one of his patients, I quickly answered. And please never call me old lady again. It's a term of endearment, babe. Dean bumped his shoulder against mine playfully. I don't like it. It suits you, Shannon smiled. I let that one go because Dean was sitting right beside me and I knew that he wouldn't appreciate the cattiness, so instead I smiled back. Well, if you two move, I'll just have to travel to Miami for my treatments. It's always a pleasure, Mark said. Karen would never leave her successful business behind, Shannon said. Everyone ignored her as they should. Crystal was still watching Dean and me intently. Shannon snacked on her second croissant, and Jenny was straightening up around the salon while keeping a close eye on all of us. Where the heck was Karen and Keisha? Waxes don't take that long. Ha! Unless Karen had a field down there. She's always been a bit unkept. I think you can find I think you can find a qualified plastic surgeon around here. Dean took another swig of his drink. And I think it's her body, so it's her decision, Mark challenged. He's right, I smiled. I think since I'm the one paying for it and she's my wife, I have more of a say than she does, Mark. Dean gritted his teeth. Besides, it's none of your business. Shannon sighed. No one cares what plastic surgeon makes Olivia looks more like a blow-up doll. Can we talk about something else? She rolled her eyes. Hold on, we got a few thumb warriors in the chat. You always know, like, when the numbers come up that there's trolls in here. Thank you so much for giving the feed a like. All right. One thing I ain't never done is make nobody be here that don't want to be here. And you can be negative all you want, but you're watching me, not the other way around. Have a great day. God bless you. Someone said that I was speaking too fast. I really don't know how to slow down. It's my reading voice. Does anybody else want to write something negative so I can block you too while I take a sip of water? If you're just joining and you're wondering like what the heck is going on, it's the reading live, and we're currently reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Okay. I'm gonna start from the part. No one cares which plastic surgeon makes Olivia looks more like a blow-up doll. Can we talk about something else? She rolled her eyes. Dean, Mark, and I ignored Shannon again while Jenny engaged into her side conversation. Crystal was still acting like a fly on the wall, quiet and observant. We can discuss this at another time, Olivia, Mark said with a small smile. I nodded. Hey, Mattis. Hold on. Everybody's so close together, sometimes I'll be muting the wrong people. Thank you so much. I know, right? They ain't got nothing else better to do. People like that ain't got no life. I'm glad I was able to unmute you. Dean looked at Mark and then at me, and then at Mark, and then back at me. The vein in his forehead throbbed. His face reddened. Why don't you both F off? I already did, Mark said under his breath. Yeah, I'm not used to them trolling on YouTube. I only started going live on here maybe like a couple days ago. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Mattis. And I'm cool with you being a troll, but like, child, you just gonna get blocked. Like, it is what it is. I'm trying not to look. I'm gonna try not to look at the comments. I had a moderator, but she be sleep. So the part that we're on right now is they're at the salon, they're getting mani pedis. Karen and Keisha are in the back getting it on. We got Shannon who was married to Bryce. Bryce divorced her so that he can be with Crystal. Crystal is younger, she's 25. Jenny is the store owner. A couple of days ago she got attacked when someone tried to rob the store, so it's a lot going on. Dean is Olivia's husband. He came in, and I think based off the context clues, it feels like that Olivia and Mark like was kind of sleeping together. They was kind of like sleeping together. Hold on. Do 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 do. I already did, Mark said under his breath. I just barely heard it, but no one else did. Mark was getting ballsy. He was never like this. What had gotten into him? What did you just say? Dean spat as he stood up from his chair. Say what you want to say to my face. He closed the distance between himself and Mark. Dean was always such a hothead, like an alarm on a fancy car, prone to going off with even the slightest of unwanted attention. Crystal's eyes widened as she scrambled in her seat, grabbing her phone from her purse. It was the first time she had moved since Dean arrived. She typed vigorously into it, and I thought for sure she was dialing the police, but her fingers tapped repeatedly. She must be texting, using her phone as an escape from the physical world, or she was trying to get the H out of here. That's enough, Sharon shrieked. She jumped up from her chair and threw her hands on her hips. You are not doing this in here. Jenny joined her by her side. If you two are going to fight, you can leave. Her voice was shaky. Mark threw his hands up in an I give up anyway Dean seethed and stood there for a moment. It seemed like he was deciding whether he wanted to stay or he wanted to use Mark as a punching bag for all his frustration. He returned to his chair, slamming his beer, and took a deep breath. Good. Glad that's settled, Shannon said. Would you mind giving me a trim, Jenny? Jenny nodded. Shannon took a seat at the hair station, and they began quietly talking again, while Jenny pulled out a pair of scissors and a comb. I returned my attention to Dean. Something was eating at him. I wasn't sure what, but he was off. His issue was bigger than Mark's small quips or the drama surrounding me and the girls, and I was determined to find out what that was. Thanks so much. Chapter 36. If you're just joining, we are reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Jenny took chapter 36, Shannon. So if you notice, each chapter is in a different woman's point of view. So that's why it can be a little confusing. Jenny took a pair of scissors to my hair and neatly trimmed, began dry cutting the ends. She combed down small sections, sliding them through her fingers and slowly cut, careful to only trim off a half an inch. She was so meticulous about everything she did. I noticed she was concentrating extra hard, like her mind really wasn't here. This event is a disaster, Jenny quietly confided in me. I looked in the mirror at Olivia, Dean, Crystal, and Mark. They couldn't seem to hear us over the chatter from the manicurists. Most of them were packing up. Two of them were finishing up with Dean and Mark's manicurist. Crystal's head was buried in her phone. Dean, Mark, and Olivia were embroiled in a heated exchange of indignant looks. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is. But it's not your fault. I gave Jenny a look of understanding in the mirror. I don't seem to have control of this place anymore, she said. Glancing over to make sure no one could hear her, her forehead was crinkled, eyebrows pinched together, shoulders tight, and the lips pursed. I feel like I lost it during the break-in. You do have control, Jenny, and you didn't lose anything. Your salon is still here, and so are we. I smiled. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, just let me know. She looked at me in the mirror and gave me the smallest smile back. She was still tense and overly focused, so I know my words didn't get through to her. It was obvious Jenny was still hurting, but I didn't press it. Thank you, she said. Anytime. The front door chimed again. Oh, thank you. I think we could pin comments. The door chimed again. Crap. Crystal got up from her chair. Thanks, Jenny. I'll call to make an appointment tomorrow. She walked quickly towards the curtains, but it was too late. Bryce walked in wearing a navy blue suit and a jack-off smile. Great, I said sarcastically. Jenny squeezed my shoulder in a comforting way. She pulled the cape from me, signaling the haircut was finished. Let's go. Let's go, Bryce. I told you to text me when you got here. Crystal grabbed his hand and tried to pull him out of the salon. Hold on a second, babe. Since when do the men crash their women's manicure parties? Bryce chuckled. He took a couple steps into the salon, stopping right in front of Olivia, Dean, and Mark. Crystal let out a huff of annoyance. Nothing wrong with taking care of your hands and nails. These bad boys need to be well taken care of. They're like God's hands, sculpted the human body to perfection. Mark held them out and admired his hands in the most arrogant way. You're comparing your botched jobs to God's work now? Dean belly laughed and clearly pleased with his comment. Your wife sure likes hers, Mark quipped. The vein in Dean's forehead appearance again, and his face reddened. These men were buffoons. How could I ever been so hung up on someone like them? Now, guys, it seems you two have been hanging with the ladies a little too long, Bryce said, gesturing towards Olivia, Jenny, and me. We're men, not a bunch of females with too much time on our hands, he laughed heartily. And the biggest buffoon of them all, Bryce. What did I ever see in him? Dean relaxed and nodded. Does your mouth taste funny, Bryce? I stood up from the salon chair and faced him. It was like I had put on a pair of glasses and could finally see him for what he truly was, an a-hole. I was no longer blinded by his charm, good looks, or his gaslighting. Bryce redirected his attention and took a couple of steps towards me. Crystal rubbed her head as if she were warding off an impending headache. No, why? Bryce's face was smug. Huh? Just figured it would be with all the BS you've been spewing. I placed my hands on my hips and stood up tall. You should be pretty familiar with the taste. You ate it up for years, Bryce said with his crooked politician smile. Bryce, stop, Crystal bragged. He waved his hand at her. Shannon's a big girl. If she can dish it, she can take it. Isn't that right? You can handle yourself. You know I can. I raised my chin. That's not what you said the other night when you proposed marriage to me. Bryce looked around the room with a sly smile. Olivia started laughing and Crystal's mouth fell open. You proposed to Bryce? Okay. Big clowns. Crystal asks, I knew that she hadn't seen the video and that was the news to her. I felt like an absolute idiot. I wasn't serious, I said, but my face red and betraying my words. Right, sweetheart, Bryce. Right, sweetheart, right. Bryce straightened his tie. I thought you said you two worked everything out, Crystal furrowed her brow. We did. Shannon just isn't over me, Bryce said. I am so over you, and one day Crystal will be too, because you're an effing a-hole, Bryce. Shannon, stop. Please don't talk about my husband like that. Crystal spoke up, surprised by the words that came out of her mouth. Don't be an idiot, Crystal. He did it to me, he'll do it to you too. The next woman always thinks they're the special one. Trust me, you're not, and you should know better than anyone. Crystal gave me a peculiar look, as if she was trying to figure out if I knew. I narrowed my eyes at her, trying to convey that I, in fact, did. I had been keeping secrets of hers for a very long time, one she didn't even know I had. All right, that's enough. Olivia stood from her chair and walked over to Crystal, putting her arm around her. I'm not going to stand here and listen to you talk about her that way. Crystal is my BFF, and I won't stand for it. Crystal furrowed her brow. It was obvious she was unaware of her supposed close relationship with Olivia. Get off your high horse, Olivia, I said. Dean stood from his seat. He grabbed Olivia by the arm and gave it a pull. Let's go. I told you to stay out of this. Get your hands off of her. Mark jumped out of his seat. No, Olivia's right. Bryce pointed a finger at me. You're not going to talk about my wife like that. Mark grabbed Dean by the shoulder and spun him around, and he pulled back his clenched fist and launched it right into Dean's face. Oh my goodness. Oh my. Knocking him into the ground without missing a beat, Dean got up and tackled Mark, crashing into the pedicure station and spilling the tub of water onto the floor. Crystal yelped. Bryce took a few steps away from the commotion. Olivia screamed at Dean and tried pulling him off. As Dean cranked his arm back for a punch, he elbowed Olivia right in the eye, and she fell onto her back. Karen and Keisha waltzed into the room with glowy skin and bright smiles. Their faces dimmed and their mouths dropped open when they saw Olivia on the ground holding her face and crying. Dean, realizing what he did, climbed off a bloody mark intended to his wife. Crystal scurried over to Olivia. Bryce was off to the side like a true politician, causing a commotion, and then just watches the chaos unfold, keeping his hands clean while everyone else got dirty. That's enough! All of you! Jenny grabbed the empty glass pitcher and slammed it against the ground. It shattered into 1,000 shards. Everyone froze in place and looked at Jenny, eyes wide, mouths open. None of us had ever heard her raise her voice, let alone break something. Like Olivia's entire body, it was completely unnatural. However, I reveled in it. Women weren't meant to be quiet. Tearing the shop up. If you're just joining, we're reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Chapter 37, Karen. My first instinct was to run to Mark, who was sitting on the floor holding his bloody nose. Regardless of what had just happened between Keisha and me, Mark was my husband. I grabbed a wad of napkins from the refreshment table and held them against his nose. Jenny was frozen in place, just staring off, while Keisha tried to talk her out of her trance. Oh my goodness, are you okay? I asked, helping Mark tip his head back to stop the bleeding. Yeah, I'm fine, he huffed. What the H happened? I asked Mark. He started it, Mark pointed accusingly at Dean. Yeah, well, maybe next time you'll keep your mouth shut when it comes to my wife, Dean said, in between planting small kisses on Olivia's face. He apologized profusely in quiet whispers, calling her baby and telling her how much he loved her. My lips pursed as I looked at Mark, his wispy brown hair, hurt ego, wondering eyes. Why was he so concerned with Olivia? I couldn't blow up at him now because he was clearly hurt. Her eye was red and puffy and most certainly was bruised. Krista brought a glass of ice and a napkin to her. Dean took the napkin and wrapped it around a handful of ice. He pressed it to her eye and told her to hold it there. She winced. Jenny finally relaxed. Her muscles were so tight that she loosened up. She almost fell to the ground. Keisha caught her. Are you okay? Keisha asked. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just not feeling well. Jenny's voice was quiet. Keisha poured a glass of orange juice and handed it to her. She chugged it and then filled it up with champagne, sipping at it before she downed the whole thing. I felt terrible for Jenny. She wasn't like the rest of us. We were used to the drama, the dysfunction, the gossip, the deceit. She wasn't. She wasn't from here. Crystal wasn't either, but she had Bryce to help her navigate the complexities of Buckhead. Buckhead wasn't a place you lived. It was a place you survived. I helped Mark to his feet. Before leaving, I gave Jenny a tight hug and told her how sorry I was. Her body was stiff. She wasn't herself. I gave Keisha a small hug too and whispered in her ear how much I enjoyed our time together. I'm sorry too, Crystal said. She gave Bryce an elbow to the ribs. He looked down at her and straightened up. I apologize, Jenny, for my part in all of this as well, Bryce said, as his politician voice, which contained a smidget of seriousness and a dollop of charm and a dash of insincerity. Guys, you got anything to say? Bryce looked at Dean and Mark. They both apologized. Dean helped Olivia up from the floor and carefully checked her swollen eye. Jenny nodded, her acknowledging their apologies, but it seemed she was just going through the motions. Why don't we just talk this up to boys will be boys, Bryce said with a laugh. Come on, we're all neighbors. We work hard, and I'm sure we're all a little stressed out. That's all. He patted them on the back. I rolled my eyes. Boys will be boys. How completely disgusting. You're right, Bryce. Sorry about that, Mark. I've been under a lot of pressure at work, Dean admitted. He held out his hand. Mark eyed it with apprehension. It was my fault, too. I shouldn't have egged you on. It's all this travel back and forth to Miami that's getting to me, Mark exclaimed while reaching out to shake Dean's extended hand. They shook and brought it in for a half hug with a solid pat on the back. That's the spirit, Bryce said. Why don't we go out for some beers? They nodded. Are you okay with that? Dean asked Olivia. He gave her another kiss on the side of her head. Yeah, I'll be fine, Olivia said dismissively. I can take you home, Crystal offered, and Olivia nodded. Perfect. It's all settled then, Bryce said with a well done attitude. He clapped his hands together. By the way, I wanted to extend an invite to all of you. Crystal and I are having a housewarming party in 2 weeks. We put on a new addition and then completely renovated and redesigned the entire place. It was important to me to ensure Crystal feels my home is her home. Bryce smiled a crooked smile. He looked over at Shannon and raised his eyebrows in a challenging way. Shannon folded her arms into her chest. Her eyes shot dagger at Bryce. She opened her mouth for a moment, the words she wanted to say lingering at the tip of her tongue, but she stopped. She closed her mouth tightly and said nothing. Nothing at all. She didn't need to say the last word to have the last word. Oh my goodness. Now my eye is is leaking. Chapter 38. Jenny. The present. Detective Stanford drops his pencil and leans back in his chair, stretching out his arms as if he were giving the air an invisible hug. He lets out a deep breath, clearly exhausted from this case and most likely just from hearing how much back and forth there was. How they all were on tender hooks with each other. How it was inevitable that something was going to happen that would change our lives forever. He rubs his eyes and leans forward, resting his elbows on the table. You're telling me that after all that, the fighting, both verbal and physical, the lies, the infidelity, the husbands went and grabbed beers and the wives were just fine with everything that had just happened? In a way, yes, but things were never exactly fine. It was like it was like when you boil a pot of water that slow simmer. You could see the bubbles starting to form at the bottom, but they're not quite there yet, I explained. Had it always been like a simmer? No. What do you think caused this never-ending tension? He furrows his brow. The new wife, Crystal. Why? Stanford leans back into his chair again. It was the first time a wife had been replaced in this group of women, and I think that it made the rest of them question their relationships, their purpose, and who they'd be if they weren't a wife. It brought fear into the group, and fear makes people crazy. I looked over at the clock. It's 2 p.m. I've been here for 6 hours, and we haven't even scratched the surface. When I volunteered to come and speak with the lead detective on the case, I didn't think that it would take this long. As much as I want to help, I'm tired. I yawn so my wide eyes close, and tears come out of the corners. I rub at them to keep myself awake. Detective Sanford looks over at the clock and returns his eyes to me. Do you need a break? Yes, and I'm famished. I could take care of that. Pizza or burgers? He asks, raising an eyebrow. Pizza, I say with a small smile. I took you for a pizza, girl. He smiles back. Detective Sanford gets up from his chair and starts walking towards the door. He stops and turns back towards me, hesitating for a moment. I knew he really needed my help. Buckhead was complicated, intricate, like a spider's web. So beautiful to look at, but so easy to get entangled in. Only the spiders knew how to navigate the web without getting stuck, and I was a spider. What do you know about Crystal's life before Buckhead? He asked. I try to recall the small tidbits I had learned here and there. She was a bartender in Texas. That was all about I known about her. No one ever really asked about her past unless it had to do with how her relationship started with Bryce. Actually, not a whole lot. Detective Sanford pursed his lips and nods. I thought so. It seems she had a complicated history of her own. He opens the door and closes it behind him, letting the words hang in the air. Choo 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 choo. Mention it. Yeah, he was slick. Mentioning that housewarming party, knowing that Shannon was there. Chapter 39. Karen. I wrung the mop out of the sink of the back closet one final time and let it propped up. Closing the door behind me, I walked back to the salon area. Shannon tossed a bag of used napkins, crumbs, and empty champagne bottles into the trash can. Jenny vigorously wiped down the tables and stations with a damp rag. Even though they were clean, she just kept scrubbing. Keisha collected dirty dishes and put them all in a bin. You guys really don't have to help, Jenny said, blowing small pieces of hair out of her face and wiping her glistening forehead with her arm. Nonsense, Shannon gathered the remainder of the trash. We're not leaving you to clean up our messes anymore. We're grown women, I confirmed. Yeah, and you pay me, Keisha added with a laugh. Okay, okay. Out of breath, Jenny took a seat in her salon chair and let out a huff. The rest of us followed suit, so we were all sitting in a small circle. We looked around the salon, which was pretty much spotless again. No evidence was left as what had transpired an hour before. The blood from Mark was cleaned up, as well as everything that had been knocked over and left in disarray. The nail stations were all put away. The contract manicurist had packed up and left quickly. Are you going to the housewarming party, Shannon? Keisha asked. Her question was sincere. No, you'd have to hold a gun to my head to get me to go to that. Shannon took a sip of water and turned up her nose at the thought of it. I don't blame you. I'm kind of wondering, is Shannon pregnant because she ain't really been drinking like that. But that's just an inside thought. Okay. Because she had coffee and now she's drinking water. I doubt it. Do 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 do. I don't blame you, Jenny said. What Bryce did today was completely out of line, and let's not forget the gala and the video. Shannon crossed her arms in front of her chest. I nodded. It wasn't just Bryce today, though. My husband's an idiot as well. I don't understand his need to protect Olivia with this little feud that he has going on with Dean. I folded my arms to my chest, matching Shannon's posture. Excuse me. She is his client, right? Keisha asked. Well, yeah, and you two are friends. Keisha crossed one leg over the other, bouncing her foot. Barely, I rolled my eyes. Before Shannon and Bryce split and Crystal entered the picture, Olivia and Shannon and I were close, but our friendship had been fractured since it was made public that Shannon and Bryce were splitting. And we just drifted further and further apart. I still felt close to Shannon, even though at times she needed her space, but Olivia was driving a wedge between all of us. Maybe that's it. Maybe he feels like he needs to protect her as a client and your kind of friend. Keisha tries to make sense of my dilemma. Or he's sleeping with her, Sharon blurted out. My eyes widened and my mouth dropped open. Do you think he is? I slid from my seat and began to pace. Sitting still was always difficult for me, hence my need to run. I tried to piece together the last few months since Mark had really started acting strange. No, I don't know. I was just thinking out loud. You know me, Karen, Sharon said with an uncomfortable laugh. Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Jenny chimed in. I paced harder, my shoes smacking across the floor. Was he cheating? With effing Olivia? Would he do that to me? Would he do that to Riley? Oh, Riley. She got some nerve. My heart stung for a moment thinking of my little boy. Could I even be mad after what Keisha and I did earlier? I should find out, shouldn't I? Like hire a private investigator or something? I stopped and looked at each of them for confirmation. Jenny nodded. Shannon shrugged her shoulders. Keisha pinched her forehead and looked at me with judgy eyes. She didn't need to say anything. I knew what she was thinking. It could hurt, Shannon said. You know, to be sure. She rummaged through her purse and pulled out a business card. Here, what's this? I took the card and held it up. It said William Billinger, private investigator. I used it a while back. Shannon pulled out a tube of red lipstick. She slowly pressed it against her lips, tracing them back and forth. Wait, on Bryce? Jenny asked. Among other things, Shannon said with a flick of her wrist. Maybe I should hire a private investigator to figure out who broke into my salon. I think that's the worst part, the not knowing. The feel that it could come back at any time, Jenny said, but I don't even think she realized she was saying it out loud because she wasn't looking at any of us. Keisha grabbed Jenny's hand, snapping her out of her daze. It'll make you feel better, you should. She looked at Keisha. Oh, yeah, maybe I will. But Karen, you definitely should, Jenny said. I nodded and slipped the card into my pocket. I didn't know I would use it, but if I did, it hurt to have it. If Olivia was really sleeping with my husband, what else was she doing? Thank you. Hey, Miss Riz. If you're just joining, we're reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Chapter 40, Crystal. Olivia sat across from me in a throne-like purple chair in her large and lavish living room. Opulent wasn't a big enough word to describe her and Dean's home. Everything was trimmed in gold and mixed with onyx and white marble. I'm not quite sure who her interior designer was, but I'm sure she had the trumps number on speed dial. It was exactly how I pictured her decor taste would be. The house was a monstrosity of architectural design, big in every way imaginable. 10 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, an outdoor pool, a walking garden, a tennis court. Just like Olivia, it was over the top and in your face. I hadn't known much her long, but I knew that much about her. She was holding a nearly melted ice pack against her eye. We had been sitting here for 30 minutes talking on and off, mostly of the greatness of the house she resided in. I wanted to leave, but I didn't want to abandon her like this. Olivia wasn't a very kind person, but she still was a person. I knew what Dean had done to Olivia was an accident. However, what he did to Mark was deliberate, and I could see the rage boiling within him. I feared one day that anger would spill over into Olivia if it hadn't already. Are you sure you're okay? I asked for the 100th time. Yes, it was an accident. This time it was, but what about the next time? I shifted uncomfortably on the couch. Olivia took a deep breath and removed the ice pack from her face. She sat it on the coffee table in front of her, leaned back in her chair, and gently pressed her fingertips to her bruised eyes. She winced but continued to press her fingers into her skin. It was clear it was painful, but she kept doing it, which was rather odd. She stopped and looked directly at me. There won't be a next time, Olivia said. And you're sure of that? Yes, Crystal. I'm not some little girl who can't take care of herself. I'm not implying you are, and I thought the same thing. Olivia's face lit up and she leaned forward in her chair. Did something happen to you? I shifted again uncomfortably. No. I was just trying to relate to what you're going through, I said unconvincingly. The corner of Olivia's lip perked up. She leaned back in her seat. I'm not going through anything, she said firmly, so just drop it. I looked around the room awkwardly. An older woman walked in and handed us both a glass of sweet iced tea. Olivia took her glass without acknowledging the woman. I thanked her. I'm sorry, Olivia. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. I didn't mean to butt in. I took a sip of the iced tea. Olivia nodded. It's fine. I just don't feel comfortable speaking ill of my husband. Speaking ill of my Dean. He's my husband. I'm not sure you feel the same way about Bryce. She raised an eyebrow from behind the rim of the glass. Of course, I said, setting the drink down on the coaster. I'm happy we're friends, Olivia said, looking up at me and looking me up and down. Me too. I pulled in my lips and fidgeted with my fingertips until unsure of what else to say. I like to keep my inner circle small, so you're quite lucky to be a part of it. Olivia cocked her head to the side with a smirk. Yeah, well, do you need anything else? I stood from my seat and readied myself to make a quick exit. Have dinner with Dean and me tomorrow night. Bring Bryce. We'll do a double date. I stammered, trying to come to an excuse as to why I wouldn't work. I really needed a break from everyone, and I didn't care for Dean. Buckhead was driving me crazy, but after some hesitation, I reluctantly said yes. Great, how about 7? I nodded. She rose from her feet and closed the space between us in 3 steps. She wrapped her arms around me, then released me from her embrace. Before I could turn away to collect my purse, she grabbed my shoulders and looked me in the eyes. Perfect. We'll have our chef make buco. You probably don't know what it is, but trust me, you're going to die when you try it. Olivia's lips spread wide, revealing a large toothy smile, like a primate dog just before it attacks. I smiled back. From the couple of weeks I had known Olivia, I had noticed she had this way of being both cruel and kind at the same time, like a personality paradox. The way that she acted wasn't natural, but it was intentional. Over the top Olivia every time. Chapter 41, Olivia. I walked into the dining room wearing a tight-fitting red dress and a face of resolve. I was adorned in diamonds around my neck, wrists, and fingers. My hair was flawlessly blown out, and thanks to Jenny's skillful makeup application, there was no sign of yesterday's mishap on my face. I had to ensure everything was perfectly in place. The white silk tablecloth beneath the gold-trimmed chinaware, several bottles of red wine were set out on the oversized mahogany table. Crystal and Bryce would be here any moment, and I was determined to have tonight go well. Crystal and I had gotten off to a rocky start, and I could tell that she was apprehensive about me, always so shifty and uneasy. Tonight, I'll fix that. Power couples had to stick together. I really didn't need any more added drama. It caused wrinkles, and my Botox sessions were becoming more and more frequent. Crystal agitated me, though. I wasn't sure why. A therapist would have to figure that one out. There was no reason for me to dislike her. With Shannon on her way out of the group, whether she liked it or not, Crystal would take her place. There were power in numbers, so I couldn't just kick people out without replacing them. Crystal was a replacement for Bryce and for my circle of influence. The doorbell rang. I was about to call for help to answer the door, but decided it would be more personable to answer myself. I took a deep breath and twisted the corners of my lips into a welcoming smile. It was forced, but it was inviting. I'm going to be live till 12 a.m., so about another hour. I wasn't really planning on staying live this long, but we have so much to finish with the book. I don't even know if we halfway. We only about halfway now. I'll be reading tomorrow at 12:30, and I'm gonna leave the replay up. Um, I threw open a large arched door, revealing Crystal and Bryce on the other side. A soft pink dress enveloped Crystal while Bryce wore his usual campaign suit, fitted navy with a red power tie. Bryce gleamed his trademark wide Tuesday grin. Crystal smiled awkwardly, her lips quivering in every direction, trying to find the right curve they should be in when greeting someone. She handed over a bottle of wine. I can't pronounce that. Dawn would have been a more suitable choice. Thank you. Come in, come in. I threw my arms around each of them. Dean, they're here. I called over my shoulder as they crossed the threshold. Thanks for having us, Crystal said. No, thank you for coming. We're so glad to finally have you both over for dinner. Glad that you two can make it. Dean trotted down the spiral staircase. He was dressed in black slacks with a white button down. Not as formal as Bryce, but Dean was never all that formal. Dean gave Crystal a hug and shook Bryce's hand, and then guided them into the living room for drinks, pointing out the 30-foot ceilings and superb architecture of the house along the way. Crystal and I were looking forward to our housewarming party. We're excited to show you all the additions we put in as well as Crystal's eye for design. Right, sweetheart. Bryce wrapped his arm around her and pulled her in the crook of his shoulder. Right, she said. I clasped my hands together as they took each of their seats on the oversized couch. An eye for design, I said, raising an eyebrow. I didn't realize you were a designer, Crystal. Very surprising. I did all the interior design for this house. What do you think? She swallowed hard. Dean handed out Crystal champagne glasses. Crystal took a drink from hers before answering. I didn't study interior design or anything. Bryce is just really proud about your place. Looks expensive, she said, taking another drink. Thank you. I gave a delightful smile. It was just what I was going for. I wanted guests to feel like it was a real treat to be in our home. A toast, Dean proclaimed, holding his drink out. We all followed suit, raising our glasses. Two good friends, new beginnings and long lives. Our heads nodded and our glasses clinked, and we drank to that. Did we mention our housewarming party as a costume party? Bryce took another sip of his champagne. No, and I already bought a dress, a very expensive dress, I said with a huff of annoyance. Save it for another occasion. Dean walked to me and wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me in tightly, almost a little too tightly. I'm sure you can still wear the dress. Costumes are optional, Crystal spoke up. Nonsense. They're required. With it being the weekend after Halloween, we figured it'd be perfect, Bryce campaigned. Yeah, babe, it'll be fun. There's nothing better than pretending to be someone else, Dean said. Except when you're me, then being anyone else is a downgrade. Bryce howled with laughter. Dean laughed harder, and I let out a cackle. Crystal did one of those closed mouth laughs that closed mouth laughs, the ones that's forced for politeness. She clearly didn't appreciate his sense of arrogant humor. I rather like when people knew their place in society. Bryce was at the top and he knew it. Shannon, on the other hand, had no self awareness. She was an ex wife, a has been, or whatever happened to, and she had wronged me. No one gets away with that. I would never be like her, and that is why she needed to be severed from this group, like a lizard caught by its tail. The only way the lizard survives is if it sheds the tail. Shannon was a tail, useless and unnecessary, and if she wouldn't sever herself, I would, because I knew she would only bring the rest of us down. But enough about Shannon. This night wasn't about pushing Shannon further away, it was about bringing Crystal closer. Are you ready for your party? I asked with a gleaming smile. The help refilled each of our glasses while Dean and I took our seats in our throne like purple chairs beside one another. He held my hand and we said as one, as queen and her king. I smiled at him. He smiled back. Pleased with me this evening. Dean was so dead set on maintaining our relationship with Bryce and whomever he happened to be married to. Crystal would be my new BFF, whether she liked it or not. Not quite. Still have some finishing touches, and we're having the company come in and decorate the whole place for Halloween this next week. She explained. It's going to be rather on theme. Skeletons, spiderwebs, chandeliers, and everything red and black. Curtain, carpet roses. We're even having the pool dyed red for the night. Her face lit up as she spoke about it, like a child would in a toy store. Then again, Crystal was a child. I smiled and managed to take another sip of my champagne. That sounds lavish. We can't wait to see it. I pursed my lips together. Dean grazed his thumb over my hand affectionately. It was Crystal Vision, Bryce said proudly. He put his hand on her leg and patted it lovingly. She beamed at him. Couldn't have done it without you. Or his checkbook, I coughed. Crystal's face scrunched up as she looked at me. She didn't hear what I said, but her brain still trying to put it together. Dean grumbled under his breath. Excuse me. I swallowed wrong. I pretended to clear my throat. Sometimes I just couldn't help myself. Let's not forget about the fireworks show, Bryce said. Save some for the party, Crystal teased. Wow, this is going to be the party of the year from the sound of it, Dean said, pumping Bryce up. Gala night usually is, but we all know how that went. Bryce gave a half smile. Crystal shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The help once the help once again refilled our glasses. I sat up taller. You don't have to remind me. Shannon made such a fool of herself that night. How could anyone forget? Plus the video? I let out a laugh. What video? Bryce said X. Crap. Crystal gave me an odd look. And then she proposed to you? I quickly added, but I was sure that it was too late. Dang it. Crystal's little brain was putting things together. She stared at me as she brought the champagne flute to her lips. Bryce burst into laughter, and Dean did too. Can we change the subject? Crystal huffed. It was less of a question and more of a demand. Bryce whispered something into her ear. I couldn't hear what he said, but he did change the subject, so I could only assume there was an apology of some sort. Why was Crystal loyal to Shannon? Why did she care? Perhaps she just felt guilty. What Crystal did to Shannon was the worst thing that she could do to an elite wife. Actually, the worst thing that she could have done to Crystal was unalive her. Heck, maybe now that was the only way to make things right. It would be the humane thing to do, and it would be the best for all of us. Put Shannon out of her misery like an old mangy dog. Well, dang. Olivia threw Yeah, she threw her under the bus. And she don't care either. Chapter 42, Crystal. A woman wearing black pants, black shirt, and an expressionless face sat on a plate of warm food in front of me. The steam rose, sending an intoxicating smell of meat, veggies, and white wine straight to my nose. I thanked her. She barely nodded and quickly disappeared. Olivia and Dean's help were like ghosts, or at least treated that way. They said nothing and just moved things where they were told to move them. It was clear that how Olivia liked it. Bryce and I had a cleaning lady, a full-time chef, a gardener, and a pool boy, but I made sure to get to know all of them on a personal level. Only Olivia would enjoy treating the living like they were already dead. Everything looked so delicious. I unfolded my napkin and placed it on my lap. Olivia and Dean were seated across from Bryce and met me at a decadent dining room table that could seat 18. I was surprised they hadn't sat as far reaching the ends of it. However tacky it would have been a true power move. I assumed that that's where they sat when they were just the two of them, a mile apart from each other. I giggled to myself but quickly extinguished it by separating my lips with a glass of red wine. It went down smooth, unlike everything else this evening. The atmosphere, the opulence, the company, the dang video was mentioned again. I hadn't seen it and I didn't know what it was about. But now that I knew Olivia had something to do with it, she always had something to do with everything. And I knew whatever it was no good. Thank you, Olivia said, taking a bite of her food. Eat up. I nodded and picked up my knife and fork. The knife slid through the meat like butter. I could feel Olivia staring, and when I glanced up, her large eyes with rich, chocolatey irises were laser focused on me. She gave me a small smile. However, her overly injected lips made her smile look bigger than it actually was. I stabbed the fork into the piece of veal and brought it to my mouth, making eye contact with her. The meat slid off the fork with ease, and the flavors burst on my tongue, forcing me to let out a sound of delight. Yum! OMG! I swallowed. I told you, Crystal, can't you just die? Olivia said, pleased with herself. You're right about that, Olivia. This is incredible. We have to have our chef get to the recipe from your chef, Bryce said as he took several more bites. That'll cost you, Olivia gave a playful wink. She took another sip of her wine and flicked her long, luxurious hair over her shoulder. Dean laughed. Of course we'll get you the recipe. He wiped his face with a napkin. Tell me, are things okay at the salon after the mishap yesterday? Bryce asked. I let out a small, awkward cough. I hadn't had a chance to talk to any of the women aside from Olivia, and I really didn't want to discuss the salon. I went and saw Jenny today for a Brazilian blowout and makeup. It seems to me everything is just fine, Olivia said matter-of-factly, holding her hands in front of her. Bryce nodded and continued eating. That's good to hear. Do you feel the same way, Crystal? He looked to me, waiting for confirmation. I hadn't had a chance to speak to any of the girls aside from Olivia, but if Olivia says it's fine, I'm sure it is. I took a large gulp of my wine glass. You should probably go in tomorrow, get nice and pampered, and throw some extra money for Jenny for her troubles yesterday, Bryce said. He was always about his reputation, about smoothing things over, fixing things, and how did he fix things? By throwing money at them. It annoyed me, but now wasn't the time to call him out for it, so I just nodded and smiled instead. It was a nice gesture, even though it was all for the wrong reasons. I nearly rolled my eyes, but I caught Olivia looking at me again, so I forced them to stay in place. That is so sweet of you, Bryce. Olivia fluttered her eyelashes. Maybe you should do the same, Dean. She turned towards him. Dean nodded and spoke with a mouthful of veal. Of course. I didn't believe that Olivia and Dean intended on delivering their promise. It seemed like their offer was more for showing them making things right. Then again, Bryce Jester was for show too. Perhaps we're all more alike than I thought. Speaking of things we should do, I was talking to Bryce and Mark, and I think that we should do our life insurance policies, Olivia, Dean said nonchalantly while chewing his food. I shot a look of confusion at Bryce. Why were you talking about that with Dean? Bryce grabbed a napkin from his lap and wiped his face. He was sure to chew his food thoroughly and swallow before speaking, the complete opposite of Dean. Mark's cousin sells insurance and it isn't doing so hot. So he mentioned it to us while we all had beers. They've got Riley and we just redid the house, so I think it's a good idea. Or maybe Mark's planning on unaliving Karen, Olivia said, tossing her head back in laughter. Dean laughed along with her. Bryce chuckled but shook his head and looked back at me. We're all just getting older and it never hurts to get covered. Plus, what happened at the salon, we can never be too careful. Ain't that the truth? Olivia said with a nod. Death don't knock first. If anything were to ever happen to me, I want to ensure you were taken care of, he said, reaching out and holding my hand. But you're changing the policy for both of us? I questioned. Yes, not to bring her up, but Shannon and I did the same thing. We both wanted to make sure the other was set if something were to happen. For Shannon and me, kids were never in the picture, but I think they are for us. I'm thinking long term, sweetheart. He planted a kiss on my cheek. I glanced over at Olivia. She was leaning on her elbows, her chin propped up on her hands, hanging on Bryce's every word. So was Dean. I looked back at Bryce. His eyes were squinty, yet large, begging me to say yes and waiting for my approval. None of this made any sense. We didn't have any kids right now, and if I were to die, Bryce would be fine. He was the one with all the money. I wasn't about to hash this out in front of Olivia and Dean, so I nodded and told him I'd take a look at the policy. That's my girl. He pulled me in and kissed me on the side of my head. So what about us? Dean said to Olivia. What about us? She returned to picking away at her food, barely eating any of it. My plate was nearly clean, but Olivia had only consumed a few bites. I think we should do the same. My job isn't always the safest, and I want you to be well taken care of if something were to happen to me, and vice versa. Dean planted a kiss on Olivia's cheek. The whole conversation was odd and definitely not a topic for a dinner party. Who the heck talks about their life insurance policies with people they barely know? I think you and Bryce are right. What's wrong with betting on death? Betting on death? Olivia laughed. Here, here. Dean raised his glass. Olivia raised hers. Bryce raised his and then looked at me. I followed suit begrudgingly. Cheers to death. Bryce chuckled. They all tipped back their glasses, extinguishing their laughter with red wine. I cringed at the very idea of it. Toasting to death? I perched a glass to my mouth, letting the red liquid pass my lips, slither across my tongue, and slide down my throat. What did I get myself into? Like, what type of dinner conversation is that? Chapter 43. My bad. If you're just joining, we're reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. Chapter 43. Karen. I shut off the lights and closed the door to Riley's room, quietly whispering, "Good night, my sweet boy." I tied my hair back in a low ponytail as I made my way down the hallway into the kitchen. Grabbing a bottle of open red wine, I poured 2 glasses. I drank one and refilled it again, letting out a sigh of relief. I had been waiting for a glass of wine all day, something to numb the worry, the anxiety, the confusion, the heartache, all of it. The 8 miles I ran earlier that morning did nothing but aggravate my knee. Playing in the park afternoon with Riley only helped busy my mind for brief moments. When he would ask me to watch him jump off the swings, cross the monkey bars, or run as fast as he could to some inanimate object ahead of him. Doing an extravagant house showing this evening just made me feel emptier and more confused. There were brief reprieves from the worrying. I tried reading a book when I put Riley down for a nap, but no matter what I read, the words on the page kept rearranging themselves into questions. Is Mark cheating? Is he sleeping with Olivia? Would Olivia do that to me? Did I even love Mark anymore? Did I really care if my marriage was over? Was my marriage over? Who would I be without Mark? How would Riley react? Did Keisha not have something real? If we did, could we make it work? How would people treat me as a gay woman? Would it affect my business? I felt so alive when I was with Keisha, like I was truly living life I was supposed to live, like it was for me for once. So it had to be real, and if it were, could I be mad at Mark if he was cheating too? I took a deep breath, followed by a long sip of wine. I tossed the empty bottle in the trash, grabbed both wine glasses, and made my way to the living room. Mark was lying on the couch, waiting for me to start an episode of Dead to Me. So, if you've been following along, I want you to take a guess on who you think the dead housewife is. We have Olivia, we got Shannon, we got Crystal, Karen. It has to be one of them four. We know that Jenny's alive because that's who the detective is talking to. But there's no indication of like who the person that may be dead. I don't know what I said last time. I think I said Olivia or Shannon. Um Hurry up, I'm going to press play. He turned his head and looked over at me. I handed him his glass and took a seat at the end of the couch. Karen or Olivia? Um He turned his head to look over at me. He pulled in his feet to make room for me. His hair was a scruffy mess, and he was already dressed for bed in flannel pants and a white t-shirt. Despite the way that I was feeling about Mark and Keisha, he was still handsome to me. He still had that boyish charm to him. Ready? I nodded. He pressed play. The colors swirled on the television. Noise emanated, but nothing of substance registered with me. I was in a trance, my mind trapped within thoughts of what would be. I brought the glass to my lips and took another drink. It didn't go down smoothly. It got caught in the back of my throat as I had forgotten how to swallow. I coughed violently, struggling to breathe, struggling to get down or to get it out. Much of the lies that I had been telling myself all these years and the truth that I had been telling Mark these past few weeks. Mark paused the television and sat up. He grabbed the glass from me, set it down on the table, and patted my back as I tried to catch my breath and clear my throat. Swallow, breathe, cough. Mark disappeared and returned moments later with a glass of water. He propped it up to my lips and tipped it back. I gulped half of it down. He pulled the glass away and placed it on the table. I could breathe again, the liquid free from my throat, the lies still buried within me. Rubbing my back, he asked if I was okay. Yeah, I just swallowed wrong, I said breathlessly, not looking at him. Was he too, holding on to lies? Were we husband and wife vowed to love one another till death do us part, but we couldn't even be truthful? Or perhaps it was just me, had not held up my end of the deal. Are you sure you're okay? He pushed his loose piece of hair from my face. I looked over, surveying him, trying to find the deception. Was there any? Are we okay? I asked. Mark pulled his head back as if he were caught off guard by my question. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was the only one in the wrong. Yes, at least I think so. Why do you ask? He returned his hands to his lap and leaned back a little, increasing the space between us. I don't know. You've been distant, and we haven't been intimate in months, I confess. I needed to put it all out on the table, or at least most of it. I needed to make sense of my feelings for Keisha and my lack of feelings for Mark. I know. I've been overworked and I haven't been the best husband. I was planning to cut down my hours in the Miami office come the new year, and I was going to surprise you for Christmas with a vacation for just the two of us. He let out a deep breath. Really? I felt entirely guilty now. A little over a week ago, we got into a fight over the idea of him taking a vacation, and now he wanted to take one and cut his hours. Was he telling the truth? Had I blown things out of proportion? My eyes glistened from the condensation of my guilty conscience. Of course, he reached for my hand and held them, rubbing his thumb tenderly on me. I wanted to tell him right then and there what I had done, what I had been going on with Keisha and me. I wanted to talk to him about how confused I was. He was my husband after all. He would understand. He leaned in and gave me a soft kiss on my lips. As we pulled away from each other, I looked him in the eyes, ready to tell him the truth. Mark, actually, there was something I wanted to talk to you about. He interrupted. What is it? You know my cousin Sal? He asked. I nodded. He sells life insurance and he's not doing too hot. So I like to switch and up ours, to help him out. I furrowed my brow. Well, what do you think about increasing our life insurance payouts? I don't really think about it. I pulled my hands away from his and grabbed my wine glass. I talked to the boys about it, and Dean is up in his and Olivia's life insurance policy. I think we should too. He leaned back and we took a drink from his wine. Well, it makes sense for them. Dean has a shady job, whatever it is he does, and Olivia can't stop getting plastic surgery. I said with a small laugh, perching my glass back on my lips. But we have Riley. What if something were to happen to one of us, or worse, both of us? I want to make sure that he be well taken care of. I glanced around the room, thinking it over. Was he saying something? Was he What he was saying didn't make sense. We never really talked about the life insurance policy before, but we were getting older and we did have Riley. Maybe it wasn't such a bad thing after all. Okay, I nodded. Great, I'll get the paperwork drawn up for us. He kissed me on the cheek and reached for the remote. Before I could confess to him what I had intended, he pressed play. It was probably for the best. Mark was a calm man, almost too calm. It was why he was the best plastic surgeon on the East Coast. Steady hands, still nerves. But I always sensed there was another side to him, a side even I wasn't privy to, a dark side. So just thinking, based off that, so I think it's really weird that all of the husbands all of a sudden are talking about getting life insurance policies or like changing their life insurance policies. So it's like really hard to find out which one gonna be dead. Chapter 44, Shannon. Jenny combed a deep conditioning mask through my hair, carefully spreading it through my ends. Karen was seated beside me while Keisha worked on trimming her hair and waxing her brow. I really didn't need anything done today, but I figured some pampering would do me some good. I spent the night thinking of ways that I could take down Bryce, but when I woke this morning, I figured I had better start spending my time on something more positive. A good night's rest and some volume can do wonders for the mind. Rather than bringing Bryce down, I would try to refocus my energy on lifting myself up. Try was the key word. I'm sure if I saw Bryce smug face again, I feel differently. Karen screamed in pain as Keisha pulled off a strip of wax from her brow. Ouch, what the heck, Keisha? Sorry, you need to relax. You're holding so much tension in your face. Keisha waved her hands, fanning air on her, while Karen pressed her hand against the splotchy red skin. Beauty is pain, Karen. I do notice that while she was getting the wax that day, it was real quiet. It wasn't no yelling or nothing. But, you know, you would know, Shannon spat back at me. Oh, someone woke up on the wrong side of the doctor today. I teased. Karen took a deep breath. She closed her eyes and relaxed her face. It uncrumpled and became smooth again. Another deep breath in and out, and then she reopened her eyes. Perhaps she had found out about Mark. It was clear he was cheating. At least to me it was. Bryce had cheated on me for months. I knew from the first time he was unfaithful. Intuition, I knew it. I didn't believe it, but I knew. What's going on, Karen? I raised an eyebrow. Nothing. Lies. You're tense and snappy. Now spill. If you can't spill here, you can't spill anywhere, I said, setting my glass down. It's Mark. Ugh. It's men. It's always men. I rolled my eyes. He told me last night that he was cutting his hours in Miami in the new year and that he was planning a surprise vacation for us. She confessed. Wow, Karen, a devoted husband and surprise vacation? You sure have it, though. Keisha's tone was full of sarcasm. Oh, stop, Jenny said. I'm just kidding. Obviously, go on, Keisha said. Keisha had a point. Why would Karen be upset over that? There was more to the story. There was always more to the story in Buckhead. No, never mind, Karen shook her head. Don't be coy, just tell us, I said. Karen took a deep breath. Well, he admitted to being a bad husband because he's been overworked. So he was going to start focusing on us. I think I jumped the gun and believing he had done anything wrong. It's me that's wrong. Keisha gave Karen a confused look, which quickly turned to disapproval when her lips tightened and she cocked her head. She was hurt by Karen's words. I wasn't sure why, but she was. That's good news then, Jenny said. What's the problem? I'm not sure I believe him. Karen took another sip of her coconut water. Why? Jenny asked. Because he's a man, I laughed. Jenny patted her shoulder playfully. Karen ignored my comment. Keisha smiled. At least someone appreciates my humor, I added. You know I do, Keisha said. Not this time, Karen huffed. Man bashing. There's always time for that. I held my hand up for a high five. Keisha did not leave me hanging either. It was from a high five to a fist bump. Will you guys stop? Karen let out another huff. Fine, fine, fine. When you're ready to join in on the fun, I'll be waiting. I gave her a coy smile. Me too, Keisha added with a wink. Keisha clearly did not like Mark, or maybe she knew something about Mark that the rest of us didn't. Maybe she was the one sleeping with him, or perhaps she just really liked Karen and didn't want to see her get hurt. Regardless, something was off. I could feel it in my gut. It was the same feeling I had when Bryce was cheating on me, like there was a heavy rock inside my stomach weighing me down. Tell us why you're not so sure if you believe him, Jenny said as she placed the cap over my head. She dragged the stand-up dryer over and set it up, turning it on low setting. Well, last night, he said. Karen started. The front door chimed. Hello? Crystal called out. Oh, great. I wasn't ready to deal with her today. Even if I didn't want Bryce anymore, I also didn't want him to be happy. He didn't deserve that, and it seemed as though she fulfilled him. If he knew what I knew about Crystal, I don't think that he'd be so content. but I could be civil for now. Crystal slid through the black curtains dressed in ripped fitted jeans and off the shoulder top, and a pair of tennis shoes. Nothing on her was designer. Perhaps wasn't well in paradise. Bryce always made sure I was dressed head to toe in high end clothing, but it seemed like he was fine with Crystal looking like she came right from the farm. Hi, Bryce said, made an appointment for me today. Crystal said, unsure of herself and her place here. That's right, Jenny motioned with her hands. Take a seat on the couch and I'll get you started in a few minutes. Crystal sat on the plush white couch, kitty cornered to us and right in front of her to the bar. Do you want anything to drink? Just a sparkling water, she said as she repositioned herself on the couch. Jenny grabbed a San Pellegrino from the mini fridge. She removed the cap and handed it to Crystal. Keisha plucked away at the hairs the wax didn't pick up on Karen's face. Now, what were you saying? Keisha said to Karen. Well, last night Mark randomly brought up upping our life insurance policies after he said all that about cutting his hours and spending more time with me. Isn't that odd? Karen winced while Keisha plucked. I furrowed my brow. Crystal coughed over her sparkling water. Are you okay? Jenny asked. Yeah, but that's odd. Karen, last night Bryce and I had dinner with Olivia and Dean, and they brought up the same thing to us about wanting to up the life insurance policies. Everyone turned to look at Crystal. I took a sip of water and let out a laugh. What's so funny? Karen asked. Your husband wants you all to up your life insurance policies? Sound like someone's going to get off, I cackled. That's not funny. Karen playfully slapped me on the knee. Bryce mentioned that he did the same thing with you, Crystal said. I turned to her, looked at her, and found it was me she was referring to. No, he didn't. Jenny took a step back. You sure about that? Karen said with a laugh. Of course. I sat up tall and pulled back my shoulders. Ever sign something he put in front of you without reading it? Keisha raised an eyebrow. I thought back to our marriage. I like signing my name. Mrs. Shannon Madison. I signed anything and everything I could. It made me feel powerful. I even had a gold-plated pen specifically for signing my name on packages, receipts, or at designer stores and anything Bryce put in front of me. Dang, I said. Karen and Keisha laughed. Jenny patted my shoulder. Crystal averted her eyes from me and returned to take a small sip of her sparkling water. At least he didn't have you sign a post-up. Karen offered. What a slimy bee. I shook my head. If he really had me sign something like that without telling me, what else did I sign? He always thought that he knew best, that arrogant prick. Where did he get off increasing my life insurance coverage? Was he hoping I'd die while he was off banking Little Miss Barnyard? At least I didn't have to worry about it now that we were divorced. No one would profit from my death. Dang. Thank you for writing what we're reading in the chat. Chapter 45. Jenny, present. I tossed a piece of crust into the box and take a swig of Coca-Cola to wash it down. Detective Stanford devours his piece of pizza, crust and all. He wipes his hands on his pants and picks up his pen again. So the husbands convinced all the wives to increase their life insurance policy, he asked. Yes, I nod my head and wipe my hands with a napkin. He scribbles some more words down on his notebook, then drops his pen and reaches for another piece of pizza. The cheese oozes off the end of it, but he's careful to grab it all and plop it back on the slice. He folds the pizza in half in a long way and takes a large bite, smacking his lips together and chewing it vigorously. He eats pizza like he's investigating a crime, thoroughly and with care not to leave anything behind. In between bites, he asks, and you didn't find that odd? I lean forward in my chair, placing my elbows on the table. I found everything about Buckhead odd. Detective Stanford nods and continues to eat his pizza as he turns things over in his mind. Buckhead was like a Rubik's Cube. A few figured it out, a few understood it. I knew what I knew because I was a silent observer. Though the text messages they sent, the phone calls they took, and the emails they drafted, I saw everything, all while they sat in my salon chair. Not only that, but the pauses between their words, the exchange with one another, and their body language told me everything else. Why did you come to Buckhead in the first place, he asked. I'm not sure if he's just filling in the lulls in our conversation or he's genuinely curious. Or perhaps he thinks I had something to do with all of this. Just needed a change of scenery, I say. I always liked the South. I was born in the Midwest, couldn't stand the cold weather any longer. When I decided I was going to open my own salon, I knew that it would be somewhere south. Where in the Midwest? Wisconsin. Brr, I feel cold just hearing the word Wisconsin, he laughs. I gave a small smile. And what do you do when you're not working? Detective Stanford finishes up his slice of pizza. Not much. I'm typically always working. Glow is your whole life? He leans back in his chair and his eyes bounce all over me as if he's trying to figure me out. tried to put me together like a puzzle. It's a big part of it. I leaned back in my chair, matching his demeanor. It must have been rather aggravating to have these women stirring up drama and bickering over everything, than to have their husbands physically fighting in your salon, the place you work so hard to make successful. He raised an eyebrow. I knew it had came with the territory, so it didn't bother me. I found it more annoying than anything that these grown men and women couldn't act like adults. I cornered my lips perked up. Right, he says. These women paid well. They tipped well. They made me very comfortable financially, so as long as they weren't killing each other in my salon, I didn't care what they did. I grabbed another slice of pizza and plopped it on my paper plate. Well, lucky for you, the murder didn't happen at Glow then. Detective Stanford raises his eyebrows. You know what I mean. I folded my arms in front of my chest. He lets out a smirk. We determined the murder weapon was a Glock 19. Do you know anyone that would have access to that? He asks. Any one of them could have access. Guns are easy to come by in this country, especially in Georgia, I say, twisting up my lips. Detective Stanford nods and grabs another slice of pizza. Thanks, Cammy. Chapter 46, Jenny. I refilled the spray tan machine and set out a pile of folded, freshly cleaned towels. Exiting the room, I returned to the main salon area. Shannon had left a few minutes before, and Crystal was gathering her things, while Karen and Keisha sat on the couch socializing. Spray tan room was all set to go. It should have malfunctioned again, I said to Keisha. She nodded and thanked me. Thanks so much for fitting me in today, Crystal said, as she admired her fresh hairstyle in the mirror. Like Shannon, she had also come in for a deep conditioning treatment. Not a problem. She gave me a hug and said goodbye to Keisha and Karen, disappearing behind the black curtain. Keisha and Karen stood up from their seats. I'm going to catch up on some cleaning and take a nap. Are you okay to cover the salon for a couple of hours? I asked Keisha. She waved her hand at me. Take all the time you need. You look exhausted. Are you sure? I cocked my head at her. I'm positive. Besides, if I need you, I'll just bang on the ceiling with the broom. Keisha laughed. I smiled and said goodbye to both of them and walked through the back of the salon. I had about 4 additional locks installed on the back door, a chain lock and the 3 deadbolts. I slid the chain over in about 3 clicks from the bolts and the door was open. I could never be too safe now. Out in the alley, I climbed a flight of stairs and unlocked the door to my apartment. There were 3 deadbolts there too. No one had ever seen my apartment except Keisha. I was really up here myself, just asleep, basically. My whole life was a salon. The sound of the door closing echoed through my apartment. Thanks to it being barely furnished, there was a small table with 2 chairs in the kitchen. The living room had only the essentials: a couch, a coffee table, an area rug, a couple of pillows, 1 throw blanket, a laptop, and a stack of books and magazines. I didn't even have a television. I had 1 framed photo on the wall. I walked to it, admiring the smiling faces in the picture and the gold frame that outlined it. It was a photo of my sister, her husband, and their 2 young kids. She looked like a younger version of me by a couple of years. Her children were blonde with big blue eyes and even bigger smiles. Her husband towered over her petite size with light brown hair and green eyes. I had never met the children, my niece and nephew. It was difficult for me to take time from the salon. She hadn't been down to visit me since before she started her family. It was challenging for her to travel with young kids. We were sisters, connected by DNA and a shared upbringing, but other than that, we were strangers. I guess that's what happened when a person makes work their entire life. I pressed my fingertips to the glass, touching it for a moment. Letting out a deep breath, I allowed my hands to fall back to my side and made my way to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of red wine from an already open bottle. Prior to the break-in, I wasn't a big drinker. Well, actually, prior to the break-in, I wasn't a lot of things. I wasn't scared, jumpy, or anxious. I didn't wake up drenched in sweat in the middle of the night. I didn't double and triple check the doors were locked. I didn't tense up every time the bell chimed at the salon. That night had taken a piece of me, and I wasn't sure I was ever going to get it back. With wine in hand, I walked back to the living room and took a seat on the couch. Firing up my laptop, I opened a browser and typed eHarmony. Not playing around. She's like, child. Typed in eHarmony in the search bar. It autofilled before I could finally finish typing it, and I had visited the site nearly 2 years ago. It was one of the many nights Keisha and I had had drinks after a long day at work. She kept pushing me, telling me I needed to start dating, that wasn't getting any younger. Not much had changed. After my third drink, I agreed to let her help me set up a dating profile. We spent hours on it and somehow actually made me sound interested. We messaged one eligible matcher that we both agreed could potentially be a good match for me. Keisha wanted to message a dozen. She believed the more hooks we put out, the more we'd catch. I wasn't looking for quantity, I was looking for quality. If I'm being really honest, I wasn't sure if I was really looking at all, but I was trying to be open to it. That was the first and last time I had looked at the site. I never revisited it, never followed up to see if I had any messages back. I wasn't ready, or maybe I feared the rejection. Child, my nose running and my eyes running. Maybe what's terrifying more than the opposite of rejection. What if he wanted to get to know me, to date me, to love me? Logging into my account, I typed in my password and username. It took me a few moments to figure out how to navigate the site. I found a little envelope with the number 1 over it. I had a message. It was 18 months old, and it was from a man named Henry. I remembered him. He was our front runner that evening and the only man we messaged. He worked in finance, never married, no kids, dog lover, tall, athletic, ready to settle down and focus on the things that mattered in life. He loved laughter and family. He had worked hard, solely focused on his career for many, many years. He was perfect. I slowly read the message. Hello, Jenny. I was so pleased to receive your message. It sounds like we have a lot in common that we care to admit. Overworked, me too. Ready to live, me too. The belief that cats are for people that never had the love of a dog, me too. I love to take you out to dinner sometimes so we can discuss anything but work and talk about how great dogs are. Looking forward to hearing from you, Henry. My lips spread into a massive smile, one I couldn't contain. It was the first time since the attack that I had felt anything other than anxiety. I reached for my wine glass and took a drink of the liquid courage. Setting the glass back down, I cracked my fingers and took a long breath. This was it. It was finally going to put myself out there. Keisha was right. I needed more from Glow. Moving the cursor over to his name, I clicked on it. The screen loaded and it said, Profile no longer exists. I refreshed and clicked it again, receiving the same error code over and over. I took another drink of wine, then opened a new tab. I brought up Facebook and typed his first and last name into the search bar. His profile was the first one. Just as I was about to click Add Friend, I stopped. His last post on his wall caught my eye. So happy to announce that Ashley and I are engaged. She's everything I ever wanted in a partner. Here's to a lifeline of love, laughter, and all the dogs. Below the photo was a picture of him in a suit and his smiling bride-to-be. She was blonde and petite, like me. I closed the laptop and tossed it on the coffee table with a thud, knocking over the wine and spilling it onto the area rug. I didn't flinch. I didn't attempt to immediately clean it up. Instead, I wrapped a blanket around myself and laid down on the couch, squeezing my eyes closed so that they could hold back my tears. I sank deeper and deeper into myself, finding what it was like to truly had at my core. Nothing, just a deep emptiness. I knew that I couldn't go on living like this. 18 months. Yeah, that's like a year and a half. Ma'am, you too late. Oh, Paula Tink Tink. 47, Karen. Keisha pulled out her phone and pulled on Spotify playlist of early 2000s R&B songs. While I leaned against the table in the waxing room, placing her phone on the counter, she turned to me. What's the music for? Trying to get me in the mood? I don't need to try, honey, she winked. The music is to cover the screams of pleasure I'm about to bring out of you. I raised an eyebrow. Is that so? She walked to me and put her lips on my neck, licking and kissing all the way up to my hairline. I say so, she whispered, hot breath into my ear. The hair on the back of my neck stood. My heart raced. I tingled all over. How much time do we have? I asked, my breath already ragged. Keisha glanced over at the clock on the wall. 30 minutes. Jenny said she needed a couple of hours, but she never away from the salon for more than 30 minutes during working hours. How she's holding up, I asked, while Keisha slid her top off, revealing a black lacy bra. She pulled mine off too, revealing a red lacy bra. We had clearly known we were going to see each other today, or at least we'd hoped we would, hence the red lace rather than the usual cotton bra as the reward. Spicy Keisha, for real, for real. She not herself, hasn't been since the attack, and she's overworked and stressed with all the drama in the salon lately. I felt a pang of guilt. Keisha unzipped her pants and slid them down her toned thighs. I followed suit, revealing my creamy white runner legs. I really needed to actually get a spray tan one of these times. The girls were going to get suspicious if I kept going in for spray tans and coming out my usual pale self. I'm going to try to help put an end to the drama. I'll see if I can get everyone to get along and be cordial with one another in the salon for Jenny's sake. Good luck, Keisha laughed. What's that supposed to mean? I took a step back looking at her, trying to focus on her icy blue eyes, but her full lips that begged to be kissed always grabbed my attention. I'm just saying it's not going to be easy. Every one of you has been off since Bryson traded Shannon in for Crystal. Keisha bit her lip in her hand and put her hands on her hips. Even me? I stammered. Yes, even you. Keisha shifted her hips. I leaned back on the table. How so? I raised my eyebrows. Well, you're sleeping with me. You think me sleeping with you is just me being off? I made air quotes with my fingers and then returned my hands to my hips. Keisha lets out a huff. No, I don't know. You think your husband is cheating on you and you're pissed about it, despite the fact that you're sleeping with me. What do you expect me to think? I rubbed my forehead with my fingers. She was right. I didn't know what to say or what to think or even what I wanted her to think. It's just really complicated, I finally said. What's complicated? You either want to be with me or you don't. You either want to be with your husband or you don't. What is it that you want? I looked around the room and then back at her, my gaze drawn to her full lips again. Her eyes begged for an answer. I thought about my life with Mark. The passion had disappeared long ago. Then there was Keisha. When I was with her, I didn't question myself. I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I just thought about the moments about us, about how I felt, about how natural it was, not forced, just the way that it should be, effortless. But I had to think about my business, my son, and my life as a whole. But that could wait for now. I want you. I only want you, I said as I closed the gap between us, kissing her so hard she'd forget why we were fighting in the first place. It worked. She kissed me back, her hands all over my body, unclasping my bra on my breast beneath my panties, my hands folded, following suit on her body, lips on lips, tongue on tongue. Our breaths heightened. Wow, If I Ain't Got You by Alicia played softly in Keisha's phone. She pushed me onto the table and our hands ventured south while she kissed my lips, sucking on the bottom one. I closed my eyes, trying to concentrate on everything, trying to wait for her so we could finish together. We were in this together. The door slamming against the wall stopped us dead in our tracks. I sprang away from Keisha and quickly covered myself with my hands. Keisha startled, swiftly doing the same. What the F is going on here? Olivia's eyes and mouth were wide open. She stood there, taking it all in, Keisha and me, half naked, struggling to catch our breath. She looked at each of us, raising an eyebrow. Her mouth transformed from a perfect circle to a devilish half smile. I didn't realize finger banging was a service offered here, she said with a laugh. Then she turned on her heel and walked out of the room. I glanced at Keisha, exchanging a look of horror, and I quickly threw on my clothes. Olivia, wait! I ran out of the room, chasing her. This she the wrong person to walk in on them. They know she need this ammo. Olivia, like, and she walked into the room like they don't lock doors or they don't have locks on the doors. Child, 48. If you're just joining, or if you've been here and didn't know, we're reading "One of Us Is Dead" by Geneva Rose. Y'all see my eye? Chapter 48. Olivia. Sitting in Jenny's salon chair, I waited impatiently for her to arrive. We had an appointment. I was late. She was later. And Jenny was never tardy. Her time wasn't important like mine. I sent a few text messages and then admired myself in the mirror. My hair, although long and luscious, needed a little volume. My latest Botox injections had started to wear off, allowing me to express my emotions more visually. Like the shock I felt 30 minutes ago when I walked in on Keisha and Karen. Who would have thought? Mommy Dearest and Little Miss Perfect Realtor diving all the way to the bottom of the Lake Muff. Karen begged me to keep it to myself, and I obliged after some groveling on her part. As long as I held other people's secrets, I had power. I wasn't sure yet what I would do with that new power, but for now, I hold on to it. What would Mark think of all this? I mean, he had his own little dark sexual fantasies, such a submissive man. Actually, not surprised he turned Karen gay. Hi, so sorry I'm late. Jenny emerged from the back. Her hair was tied up in a haphazard ponytail. Her clothes were rumpled, her eyes were bloodshot, her face was blotchy. It looked like she had been crying. She immediately wrapped a cape around me, pulling my hair out of it and fluffing it. What will it be today? I examined her reflection in the mirror. While she waited for me to answer, there was clearly something wrong. Did I care? Probably not. Did I want to know what it was bothering her? Knowledge was power. Are you okay? I asked. My face turned sympathetic. I was something that I had practiced thoroughly watching reruns of Grey's Anatomy. When a doctor had told some poor patient's family their loved one didn't make it, the look on the doctor's face was always one of sympathy. It required a slightly pinched brow, fussed lips, and a smile raise of the forehead, and eyes that were engaged with one that you intended to be sympathetic for. I had mastered it. Yeah, I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed, and I've just been off since the break-in, she confessed while combing through my hair. Oh yes, the break-in. I nearly forgot about that because it didn't affect me in the slightest. I was beyond tired of hearing about it. It wasn't that big a deal. Like she was sure. Sure a little like she was fine. Sure, a little beaten up, but the skin heals perfectly. And I should know. Mine's been cut into a dozen times and look at me. I'm stunning. That must have been horrible. I feigned interest. She slightly nodded. Yeah, I'm still working through it. Ugh, when I made this appointment, I didn't realize I accepted an invitation to Jenny's pity party. For Christ's sakes, I suppose I brought this on myself. They were supposed to break some things and leave. That's it. Just enough to rattle her. It was punishment for kicking me out of the salon. I knew she was behind it. I knew Olivia was behind it. It was punishment for her kicking me out of the salon. She wasn't supposed to be at Glow when it happened, and those buffoons I hired messed the whole thing up. When I saw Jenny after the attack, I felt the tiniest pang of guilt, like when I cheat on my diet, the type of guilt small and fleeting. What's there to work through? I pried, holding eye contact with her. She glanced around me, then at my hair, and then back at me. She hesitated, and I thought for sure that she was going to close up and change the subject, but I have a way with people. Going through that made me feel violated. I'm not sure if that's even the right word. Jenny brought out a container of large hair rollers and sectioned off my hair on the top of my head. Understandable. I raised an eyebrow but quickly lowered it to the sympathetic position. I'm sure you're feeling alone as well. Jenny's eyes widened slightly as she rolled one of the curlers and pinned it. Yeah, even more so now. It made me realize that I needed more outside of these four walls, she said, looking around. So, it was a good thing that it happened? I perked the lip up. I wouldn't say that at all. She shook her head. My mistake. She continued to roll curlers into my hair quietly. Every curler had the same amount of hair in it. Jenny was so meticulous and fervent about her work. If only she had applied that same type of passion to her personal life, then maybe she wouldn't be feeling sorry for herself. I think you just need a night out. She shrugged her shoulders. I don't know, maybe. Perfect. It's settled then. You'll come out with the girls, meet Karen and Crystal, and you can bring your little Keisha friend. I grabbed my phone and started typing up a group text message. Oh, no, 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 she said, shaking her head. I won't take no for an answer. I raised an eyebrow and hit send on my phone. Jenny's phone buzzed. She picked it up, and I could see her cringe as she read my message. Hey ladies, Jenny needs us. She's in dire need of a night out, Buckhead style. Meeting at Death and Company tonight at 9 p.m. See y'all there. She forced a smile as she set her phone down and went back to working on my hair. You're going to have a killer time, I said with a wink. I knew she had no interest in spending any time with me outside of Glow, but I didn't care. This would be fun and would surely make up for the little strangulation incident I caused. Jenny and I had been butting heads for a while, so it was time for her to get back in line behind me. This lady is crazy. Dire need. She's in dire need. Chapter 49. Crystal. I tied my black robe tightly around my body and leaned over to the island corner to look at the sprawled out documents. It was careful to reposition my head of towel wrapped hair so that I wouldn't spill out. The documents on top were the ones Bryce had just laid out, dealing with our new life insurance policy. The papers below were everything concerning our house, warming Halloween parties, caterers, menus, guest lists, vendors, and invoices, etc. How does it look? Bryce asked as he pulled his tie loose from his neck and unbuttoned the top 3 buttons on his white collar shirt. I scanned the papers quickly. Increase of life insurance covered the $10 million on me and $10 million on Bryce. Lots of terms. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I continued to bounce my eyes around the text. It felt like the terms and conditions on an iPhone update. Too long and too complicated. Yada yada. I accept. There were tiny post-it notes stuck to the spots where I was meant to sign. It looks official, I finally said as I looked up at Bryce. My eyes refocused them to strain of the reading of the tiny black ink. Is it? It is. Need anything explained? I shook my head. I signed the papers, gathered them up, and handed them back to him. He leaned over, gave me a kiss on the cheek. Perfect. I'll get these filed in the morning. I unwrapped the towel from my head, tossed it over my shoulder, and began finger combing through my damp hair. My phone buzzed the 3rd time. Who's that? Bryce asked. I shrugged. Bryce took it upon himself to grab my phone. He keyed in my 4-digit password and read the message. I didn't mind that he went through my phone. I had nothing to hide, but on some level, it did bother me. He was storing insurance papers in front of me, and now he was reading my messages I had been trying to avoid. It's Olivia. She wants you to join the girls for a night out with Jenny. Letting out a groan, I started separating invoices into paid pals and unpaid pals. I still had a party to plan, and after yesterday's dinner with Dean and Olivia, she was the last person I wanted to see. I was exhausted just thinking about how draining she could be. You should go. It'll be fun. Bryce poured himself a glass of scotch. I think we have different definitions of fun. I rolled my eyes. He walked over to me and set his drink on the island. He put his hands around my waist and nuzzled my neck. I giggled as his 5 o'clock shadow brushed against my skin. Come on, that's nice of Olivia to plan a night out with Jenny. She needs it. I don't know about that. He spun me around to face him. What do you mean? Bryce kissed my forehead. For what I've learned about Olivia, she doesn't do anything to be nice, I said, raising my eyebrow. He lifted my chin with his hand and kissed my cheek and the tip of my nose. Oh, stop. This isn't a Disney movie, sweetheart. Someone doesn't always have to be the villain. He gave a coy smile. I wouldn't be so sure of that. Bryce frowned at me, not a real frown, but a frown that he made when he wanted to get his way. I rolled my eyes again and turned my back towards the counter, sorting through the papers and making a checklist of things that still needed to be done. Please, he whispered in my ear as he gently kissed my neck. I tried to resist, but that was the thing about Bryce. He was hard to say no to. Please, he said again. He slipped his hand in between the opening flaps of my robe. His fingers grazed my bare thighs, making their way to the center of me. He swirled his fingers onto my sensitive skin. It felt good to say yes. I promise, he whispers. His fingers ventured further. I let out a gasp. Is that a yes? He asked while he kissed my neck. I shook my head. My breath quickened. He kissed my neck harder, sucking and biting. Is that a yes? I gasped louder and louder. My back arched. His pelvis rocked. My gasp turned to screams. My body tensed all the way up like a marionette with its strings pulled taut. Then all at once, I erupted and my body relaxed. Yes? He questioned. I nodded. That's my girl. He pulled his hand from my robe, kissed my cheek, grabbed his glass of scotch, and left the kitchen. Like I said, Bryce was a hard man to say no to. He was going to be the death of me. Dang. Um, okay, so it's 11:46. We're on chapter 50. I think we could probably get 5 more chapters out, and then we're gonna end it. Tomorrow is Thursday, so I'll be live at 12:30, and we'll read for an hour. Child, I need to keep some tissue down here. I'm going through it. My eye running, my nose running. If you're just joining, we're reading One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose. It's 9:46 here. Where you at? Oh, it's 11:46 here. I'm in Chicago. No wonder you here, cause I be wondering like if the East Coast people be on here, cause if it was 12:47, I'd be asleep. Yo, I found it must be in the race. It must be in the race with my nose. Shoot, cause they both running for their life. Oh my good. Oh, Callie. Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for being here. Chapter 50, Shannon. After spritzing a few sprays of Tom Ford's effing fabulous on my neck, wrist, and cleavage, I waved my hands to dry the perfume and rub my wrists together. I sprayed a little extra between my legs, just in case. I took a second look at myself in the mirror. This was me now, a 40-something divorcee. Keisha had made me a house call early to do my hair and makeup for the evening. She did a classy updo wrapped up so well that I couldn't tell where it ended or started. She was careful to amplify my best features, and by that I mean the features Dr. Richardson had done his fair share of work on. Where you at, Joanna? A light smoky eye, red lips, peach blush, and highlights on my cheeks, tip of my nose, and throat and brow bone. I was dressed in a brand new little black Givenchy dress, accessorized. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, child. It's Wednesday. Or maybe Thursday. A little black Givenchy dress accessorized with Tiffany and Company pearl necklace and a Saint Laurent clutch. I was going on my first date since Bryce made the worst decision of his life, leaving me. His loss, I said out loud as I turned from side to side, admiring the curves of my body. I wasn't sure if I was seriously looking for a partner, but I decided it wouldn't hurt to see what was out there. Plus, what a crime it would be to deprive the world of me. I had already wasted far too much time laying around my apartment feeling sorry for myself. It was time I put myself out there. Just because I was divorced didn't mean that I was about to roll over and die. It was time to build myself back up. Then everything else would fall into place. I pulled out my phone and double checked the last email I had received from Jonathan. We had met online a few weeks ago, chatting on and off. He was quite the charmer, saying all the things a woman wants to hear. Earlier this week, I finally accepted his invitation to meet in person. I grabbed my bag and slung it over my shoulder. Checking the time on my phone once more, the driver would be here any minute. I hadn't been on the first date in over 15 years. Had anything changed? Did the men still pay? Or had the progressive females of the world ruined that for the rest of us? Women had to deal with periods, childbirths, and menopause. The least we could do was get an occasional free meal. I had been one for being an independent woman. I even attended the Women's March, but personally, I rather enjoy being wined and dined. My phone buzzed. It was a text from the driver announcing his arrival. I took a deep breath and smoothed out my dress. This was it. Time to meet my future ex-husband, I said with a laugh. 51. Jenny. I walked into the back of the salon dressed in a pale pink midi dress and nude heels. My hair had soft waves throughout, and I had lightly accessorized with a thin silver necklace and stud earrings. At my station, I finished off my look by applying mascara, blush, eyeliner, and a light pink lip gloss. The bruises around my neck had faded, even though enough that a heavy foundation completely covered them. The same went for my eyes. It was almost like it never happened. Almost. Even though I didn't want to go out, I figured I at least looked the part. I poured myself a vodka soda, and before I finished capping the bottle, the front door chimed. You better have one of those for me too, B. Keisha's voice called from over my shoulder. I turned around to find her dressed in a black mini skirt, a lace tank top, and black heels. Her hair was bigger than it usually was. Her makeup was heavier too. She put her hands on her hips and made her lips extra pouty. I know, this wasn't my idea. Olivia cornered me, I said, putting my hands up, signaling my surrender. She looked me up and down and shifted her stance. Her pout turned into a large grin. Oh, I can't be mad at you. Keisha ran to me and gave me a hug. After our embrace, I poured her a drink too. We brought the glasses to our lips and gulped down half of them. How are we going to make it through tonight? I asked, swiping away the liquid that had accumulated above my lip. I think the question is, are we going to make it through tonight? Keisha raised an eyebrow. We each took a seat at the bar and turned ourselves on the swivel chairs to face the front of the salon. The limo Olivia arranged for us would be here in 10 minutes. She insisted that we arrive in style. She is also demanding that everyone dress up for the night out, and by dress up, us the term klexy, her maiden word for classy meets sexy. Why the H did Olivia plan this again? Keisha took a sip of her drink. I don't know. She said I needed a night out after what happened with the break-in. I confessed, taking another drink. Keisha nodded. It hurts me to agree with Olivia, but you do. I think a distraction would do you good. Yeah, maybe. It's better than being inside my own head, I said. I wish you'd open up and tell me. She placed her hand on mine. I looked at her and then lowered my head. I know. I hesitated. I'm just feeling overwhelmed and alone. It's made me question what I've done in my life. I took a deep breath. I love this salon, but this salon doesn't love me. I can't love something that can't love me back. This can't be all I have. I let out a sigh. Keisha put her arm around me and pulled me in. You have me? I leaned into her. I know. Honestly, most days I don't even feel like I have this salon. Olivia's always bulldozing over me, and lately it feels like Lowe's just a wrestling ring for my clients and their husbands. I shook my head and took a sip of my drink. The salon is yours, and don't you forget that, Keisha said. I nodded. And like I said, you have me. Men are a dime a dozen. You can get one of those tonight. You found your BFF already. Finding a man? Now that's the hard part. She laughed. Why do you think that I switched to women? I wanted a challenge, she said with a laugh. I laughed too. That's the spirit. Keisha squeezed my shoulder. Now let's add some more spirits to the spirit. She poured vodka into both our glasses and held hers up for a toast. I straightened myself and held my glass up too. So you think that I'll still have time? I asked. Like it's not too late for me? I haven't missed out on my chance for more in life. It's not over till you're dead. She clinked her glass against mine and we tossed back our drinks. If one more person used the reference dead, like, what the heck? Clexia. Yeah, ain't that cute? Chapter 52. Karen. Limo's here. Mark called from and okay, so I also want to talk about how it's gonna go down when Shannon finds out that all the girls went out for the night and didn't invite her. But technically, like if Olivia planned it, she wouldn't have wanted to go anyway. Mark called from the living room as I spritzed a floral scented perfume on my neck and wrist, giving myself a once over in the oversized floor mirror. I ensured the emerald lace dress and the gold sparkly heels I was wearing was the look that I was going for. Just a night out with some girls, not me trying to seduce Keisha. I quickly applied a bright red lipstick and took a deep breath. I was nervous to be around Olivia. She had promised she'd keep Keisha and me a secret, but Olivia's word was about as strong as a toothpick. I was also anxious to see Keisha. I wasn't sure how we were after we had left things. I had taken off after Olivia to make sure that she kept her mouth shut, and by the time that I was done talking to her, Keisha had left through the back for a house call with Shannon. So I never got a chance to speak with her, and I wasn't sure that we'd get to that chance tonight. So y'all ain't you don't have numbers with your lover? Like you don't go calling her at night when you at home? Y'all just talk when y'all ready to sleep together at the salon? Okay. I had taken off after living. I walked out into the living room. Better hurry. They've hung twice. Mark raised an eyebrow. He was lying on the couch reading Gravity's Rainbow for the second time. I know. I transferred a wallet and some other essentials from my oversized day bag to a small evening purse. What's the occasion? Mark lowered his reading glasses, examining me from head to toe. I told you, Olivia planned some girls' night out for Jenny. I zipped up my purse and flung it over my shoulders. That's sweet of her. Mark pushed his glasses back up to the bridge of his nose and refocused on his book. I rolled my eyes and opened the front door. Don't wait up, I called out over my shoulder as I closed it behind me. The limo was parked in the driveway with a dangerous woman playing loudly. Olivia popped her body out of the sunroof. And you make me feel like a dangerous woman. She belted out as if she were Ariana Grande herself, minus the voice. Olivia was tone deaf, and not just when it came to singing, obviously. Get in, loser. We're going drinking, she said, giving her best Regina George impression. However, it wasn't much of an impression considering being mean and female were her two greatest strengths. I gave a partial smile and walked into the limo. Olivia disappeared inside, slinking back into her seat. Just as I arrived at the door, the driver was there to open it. I shuffled in and was greeted with a drink. Crystal, Olivia, Keisha, and Jenny were all seated in the limo, holding glasses of champagne and wearing buckhead smiles. The driver closed the door behind me. Let the party begin, Olivia declared. She downed her glass. We followed suit with far less enthusiasm. I scanned the limo to gauge everyone's face. I tried making minimal eye contact with Keisha. As I finished my sweep, I landed back on Olivia, and was met with a grin fit for only the devil herself. How's it going, Karen? Anything new with you? The end of her question was laced with the implication that she already had her own answer to this inquiry. Just was finishing up some paperwork and spending time with Riley before our bananical this evening. How sweet of you. Mother of the Year, if I ever saw one. She smiled back at me, closing our interaction. Did you invite Shannon? Jenny asked from the other end of the limo. Of course, darling. This is your night after all. However, she had a prior engagement, if you will, that may or may not involve a gentleman caller. Olivia winked. Olivia's knowledge of Shannon brought out gasps and whispers from each of us. She's going out on a date? Keisha asked. Good for her, Jenny encouraged. Yeah, I'm happy for her, Crystal said. I can't believe she didn't tell us. I crumpled up my face. She told you? She did, but Shannon was very sorry to miss your night out, Jenny. Olivia refilled her glass. Who wants more champagne? We each held our glasses up to Olivia, waiting for her to pour it. Instead, she handed the bottle off to Keisha, tasking her to replenish the drinks. I shook my head. For a moment there, Olivia had almost fooled me. Chapter 53. Crystal. Hold on, let me see. Oh. Okay, so if we on chapter 53. Bro, this goes on and on. We're gonna read one more chapter and we're just gonna cut it there. Chapter 53. Crystal. We finally pulled up to Death and Company. The limo ride had only been 20 minutes, but with Olivia, everything seemed so much longer. The conversation on the way was filled with awkwardness between Keisha and Karen, snappy and double-edged remarks from Olivia, and peacekeeping comments from Jenny. I stayed quiet for the most part, only answering questions that were directed towards me, like when Olivia asked about how Bryce felt that Shannon was dating again. Bryce didn't know Shannon was dating again, and frankly, I thought that he would be relieved to learn that. Perhaps it would ease the tension between me and Shannon, and maybe someday we could have a relationship or at least be in the same room without her jumping down my throat. Let's go, bees! Olivia said as she exited the limo. I caught Keisha shaking her head as she followed her out. Olivia handed the driver a $100 bill. We were all resituated our dresses, ensuring everything was in place, and followed Olivia to the door. The bouncer didn't even stop to ask her name. She handed him a $100 bill, and we instantly crossed beyond the red velvet rope. The swanky cocktail bar was bustling. There were two bartenders with perfectly sculpted beards and a couple of dozen patrons standing around. The place was ritzy and chic, like a 1920s throwback speakeasy, replete with the red accent walls, rich wood, and dim lighting. The women dressed in all black, carrying a Clipboard greeted Olivia. Right this way, Mrs. Patrol, she said as she led us to the large VIP table in the corner with the reserve sign. There were already glasses and ice buckets full of bottles of vodka, champagne, and white wine set out. We took our seats as the woman in the back poured us each a glass of champagne. Do you need anything else right away? We shook our heads except Olivia. Yes, we'll have 5 shots of tequila with the wheels. I cringed. I had no intention of getting drunk tonight. I just wanted to have a drink or two and leave. But I already knew that was going to be tough to pull off with Olivia here calling the shots. Literally. Count me out, Jenny said. Absolutely not. This is your party and it's my treat. I insist. Come on, Jenny, loosen up. No man wants to date a woman that's stiff as a board. Olivia's voice had an air of lightness, but it was laced with annoyance. Jenny dropped her shoulders and put her hands up. Fine, 1 shot. Olivia clapped her hands with a job well done attitude. I'm trying to keep it low key tonight, too, I said to Jenny, letting her know that she wasn't alone. She gave me a small smile. No one is keeping it low key tonight. I didn't spring for a limo and VIP treatment at the most expensive cocktail bar in town for a low key night, Olivia interrupted. The shots arrived just as she finished lecturing. She finished hers and narrowed her eyes at each of us, her way of telling us to follow suit. We raised our glass slowly. To an extravagant night, courtesy of me, Olivia toasted. Of course, her toast would be to herself. Repeated her words anyway and tipped it back the shot, forgetting about the lime and salt. After my face regained its composure, I looked to Olivia. Thanks for planning this, and I didn't mean anything about the low key night comment. It's going to be a great evening. I know it will, Crystal. She raised her chin slightly. I'm sure where you come from, you're used to beers and dive bars. This is surely a special treat for you. Olivia attached a smile to her condescending comment. I brought the glass of champagne to my lips and glanced around the bar. Over Karen's shoulder, I spotted Shannon sitting at a table alone, sipping a vodka soda. I quickly looked back at Olivia as not to bring any attention to Shannon. She must be meeting her date here. I stole another glance at Shannon. She checked her phone several times and blew out her cheeks. What were the odds we'd all end up at the same bar? And oh, they drinking. And I'm pretty sure that Olivia's probably Jonathan. Olivia's probably the dude that Shannon's supposed to be meeting up with. Like, Olivia got her hand in too much stuff. Nothing surprises me anymore. Did Olivia know Shannon was having her date here? Did she plan it, or was it all pure coincidence? From what I had known about Buckhead thus far, there were no coincidences. Chapter 54, Shannon. I was now working on my second vodka soda, casually dancing around the bar and back in my phone. I told myself I would switch to water after this drink. I noticed a rather handsome-looking man sitting at the bar alone. He also appeared to be checking the time. I gave him a second look to ensure that he wasn't my date. He wasn't. My date was 10 minutes late. I let out a huff, but pulled it back in. Deciding if his excuse was valid, I'd give him a chance. I was still nervous and anxious about joining the dating scene again after such a long hiatus, but the vodka was helping. A cackle of laughter caused my body to immediately tense up. I recognized that nails on the chalkboard laugh anywhere. It was Olivia. I looked over my shoulder and spotted her sitting at a booth with Crystal, Karen, Keisha, and Jenny. They were chatting. However, the conversation looked stilted and one-sided. Karen and Keisha were exchanging glances. Jenny was fiddling with her jewelry. Crystal was refilling her drink, and Olivia was laughing. Alone, I might add. What were they doing here? And why were they all together? As far as I knew, Olivia wasn't getting along with anyone. I noticed Crystal's eyes peering in my direction, and I quickly turned away, hoping she hadn't seen me. I glanced back again. Crystal looked away. Jenny and Keisha were chatting. Olivia was on her phone. Karen was refilling her drink. Good. She hadn't noticed me. Or at least if she did, she didn't tell the others. She and I had something in common. We both were able to keep secrets. I took another drink and looked at the time on my phone. He was now 15 minutes late. I brought up my email, and just as I was about to write him to ask where he was and or to cancel the date altogether, a message popped up. Hey, so sorry, I'm running late. Got held up at the office. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Promise I'll make it up to you, Jonathan. You better be worth the wait. Yeah, I'm reading the whole book. Not tonight though, but I have 3 parts up already. My lives is reposted and this is part 4. And then I'll be reading tomorrow and the day after until I'm done. Email, why not text? Cause it's something up with that. I mean, she said she met him on a dating app, but like that is weird. Before I hit send, I decided to add a wink face emoji at the end. I had to learn how to flirt again, and from what I read online, emojis could be very flirty, if not downright provocative. A plain old eggplant was code for penis. I considered adding that too, but stopped myself. I hit send and smiled as I set my phone down. An email alert chime went off. I picked it up and read his message. Don't worry, I am winky face. My smile grew wider. He added the emoji too. He must have been reading the same how to flirt online articles I was. I was excited to meet this man. I ordered a third drink from the server, but switched to Chardonnay, which was my essentially grape water in my book. Chapter 55. Olivia. Okay. I put my phone down and refilled my drink, making sure to top off each glass with more vodka. Some tried to protest, but I was calling the shots tonight, and if I had to serve them myself to get them to drunk, I was willing to stoop that low. Everything was going exactly as I planned it. The women were starting to loosen up. What kind of? Karen and Keisha were still exchanging looks as if they were trying to read each other's lesbian minds. What was Karen thinking? How could she do that to Mark? He was a decent lover. I know better than anyone, and she's a mom. She can't be off discovering her sexuality when she's got a kid at home and a plastic surgeon for a husband. I didn't like the way Karen and Keisha were acting on my night, so I decided to make it was time for a little fun. Karen, your spray tan looks phenomenal. Keisha did such a great job on it, I said with a smile, looking at her pasty white skin. Karen shifted uncomfortably in her chair, rubbing her hands over her bare arms as if she could cover them up. Crystal glanced at Karen's skin and her brow crinkled in confusion. Was the spray tan machine acting up again? Jenny asked. I wasn't sure if she was covering for them or she too was confused. No, I had to cancel last minute for a showing. Karen lied. She shot me a dirty look. I smirked back, taking another drink of my vodka soda. I don't really think you need a tan. You have beautiful skin, Keisha said. I rolled my eyes. Karen thanked her. Moving on. Jenny, any guys out here catching your eye? I motioned to the room of people. She looked at the bar. Not really. Oh, come on. What about that guy? I pointed at a man standing by the bar. He was poorly dressed for a place like this. Ill-fitting suit and stood alone, awkwardly out of place. He was tall and looked thin. Thanks to his clothing that was one size too big for him, everything about him was average, just like Jenny. He's perfect for you. She is so evil. Jenny looked at him and then back at me. You're right, I'll go talk to him. She raised her chin. She knew I was picking on her, but she was defiant. Grabbing her drink, she got up from her seat and made her way over to him. I let out a huff. Little Miss Goody Two Shoes. Get him, girl, Keisha hollered. Jenny turned back for a moment, delivering a small, flirty smile. She took a seat at the bar next to him and immediately made conversation. Good for her, Karen said. He could use a little styling, but aside from that, he's not bad. Keisha looked him up and down. They have a lot in common already, I said with a laugh. We should dance, I added, half standing up and moving my upper body and feeling the music. Let me finish my drink first, Crystal said awkwardly. She didn't look like the type of woman that could move her hips. She must be a total bore in bed. Poor Bryce. Yeah, me too, Keisha said, and Keisha and Karen said at the same time. I grabbed Crystal's drink and slammed it. I grabbed Keisha's drink and slammed it. I grabbed Karen's drink and slammed it. They each gave me a disapproving look. There, you're finished. Let's go. Well, dang. I got up from my seat and grabbed Crystal in Karen's hands. Karen pulled Keisha along too. I started dancing, shimmying my chest and swaying my hips with the girls begrudgingly in tow. Before I made it to the center of the dance floor, I spotted Shannon sitting at a table alone, and it stopped me dead in my tracks. My lips instantly curved into a toothy grin as I walked over to her. Hey Shannon, what brings you here? I leaned over her like a dark shadow. Karen and Keisha greeted Shannon with hugs. Crystal awkwardly waved at her but kept a step away from the table. I'm actually meeting someone, Shannon said. We know, Karen smiled. A hot date. Before Shannon could respond, I jumped in. Where is he? I raised an eyebrow. She looked around uncomfortably. He's running late. That's a bummer, Keisha said. Do you want to join us while you wait? Karen put a hand on my shoulder. No, that's fine. He should be here any minute, Shannon said, looking down at her phone. Oh, come on. I insist, I smiled. Yeah, come sit with us. Karen playfully put on Shannon's arm. All right, just until he gets here. We walked back to the booth and took our seats. Jenny was still chatting with that poorly dressed man. She's lucky I came into her life because she clearly had bad taste. What would Glow be without me? I'd probably be out of business and Jenny would be some hairstylist in a Walmart salon. These women just didn't value me. I was sure that I'd be like Van Gogh or Amy Winehouse, appreciated and recognized for my greatness after my death. Jenny, I yelled across the bar. She turned back and put her finger up as if she was telling me to wait. Who did she think she was? I waited for no one. Jenny, I called out even louder this time. Crystal covered her little country ears, acting as if I was speaking too boisterously for a bar atmosphere. She turned around again and mouthed, What? Come up here. Shannon's here. I pointed at Shannon. Keisha and Karen gave me what the F looks. Shannon waved and Jenny pulled out her phone. It appeared that she and the man were exchanging numbers. They smiled at each other. She grabbed her drink and returned to our table, giving Shannon a hug and taking a seat. Shannon's just waited for her date, I said. He's a bit late, Shannon confirmed. That's okay. I'm sure he's just caught up. Jenny patted the top of her hand. She nodded but continued to scan the bar for her mystery man. I let out a small laugh. Are you ready for your party, Crystal? She nodded and took a drink. I just had a few more things to plan, but it looks like everything is in order. I'm definitely excited for this. It's going to be the party of the year since the gala was a bust. What's everyone going to dress up as? I glanced around. Hey, Marshall. Shannon rolled her eyes but pretended not to be a part of the conversation as she checked her phone. Hadn't decided on anything yet. Karen said. Keisha and Jenny nodded. What about you, Shannon? I asked full well knowing that she had no intention of going. I found the whole thing hilarious, being invited to a housewarming party at your former house by your ex-husband and his new wife. I'm not sure I'm going to make it, Shannon said. Why not? I brought my drink to my lips. Shannon swirled her Chardonnay and took a small sip. That's completely fine. I understand. Crystal butted in. Shannon nodded at her, checking her phone again and glanced around. Wow, your date sure is late, isn't he? I pretended to look around the bar. Yeah, he is, she said with a disdain in her voice. I'm sure he'll be here. Karen offered more encouragement and false hope. Maybe he came in and saw you and left. I laughed. The girls shot daggers at me. I'm kidding. Lighten up. Jeez. I slid from my seat. I'm going to the bathroom. Watch my stuff. As I walked away, I glanced back at the table, my eyes lingering on Shannon, my mouth curving into a malicious grin. I love seeing her like this, pathetic and desperate. It's what she deserved. Thank you. 56. Shannon. Oh, dang. I didn't even know my phone. Oh, we're on 24%. That should be fine. My phone tapped the floor rapidly while I scanned my phone and scanned while I checked my phone and scanned the room. Where was he? He was now 45 minutes late. I would have just left if the girls hadn't been here, and now that I feel like I have to to save face, I hope he would show up, because if not, this would be rather embarrassing. I hated that Olivia and Crystal were here to witness this. Bryce would surely find out that the first date that I went on didn't even show up for it, and Olivia just seemed to relish in it when any other women around her failed, especially me, like it somehow elevated her. Karen, Keisha, and Jenny were being supportive of me in every way that they could be. They tried to take my mind off of waiting by making small talk. Even Crystal got Olivia off my back about the housewarming party. I appreciate that from her, but we still weren't on good terms. I checked my phone again, and this time I decided I would send him another message. Are you okay? Are we still on for tonight? Seconds later, Olivia's phone, which left on the table, lit up. On the screen, it said, email from Shannon. For a moment, I was confused. I double-checked my email, paying close attention to my sent messages. I hadn't sent an email to Olivia in weeks. Maybe another Shannon emailed her. Pure coincidence. Who was I kidding? In Buckhead, there were no coincidences. I typed up a second email. Forgot to mention, just in case you show, I'm sitting at a table with some friends. You'll recognize the brunette as she sticks out like a sore thumb thanks to her over-injected face and bloated tits. I hit send. Olivia's phone lit up. Email from Shannon. Popped up on the screen. My heart rate quickened, and I could feel my face flush. I looked around the bar and watched Olivia walk back from the bathroom. She looked like the Cheshire Cat with her wide, toothy grin. I nearly exploded, but instead I took a deep breath and a large gulp of my drink. Who wants to dance? Olivia asked as she swayed her hips to the music. I took a moment to decide what I was going to do. That F&B catfished me. I took a couple of small breaths while I decided whether or not I leap across the table and bash Olivia's plastic face in. My body was tense. I could effing unalive her right now. I took another deep breath, trying to center myself. I knew what Olivia had done, but Olivia didn't know that I knew. I had the upper hand here. I could fly off the handle, scream at her, make a scene, and leave the club, refusing to ever speak to her again. I considered that option. I know, right? I told you it was Olivia. I told you it was her. But, like, who goes to the bathroom without their phone? Child, I take my phone with me everywhere. But then I watched her. I watched her sway her hips, sing along to the music, and try to get everyone to dance. I watched her put her arms up and slither them around like the effing snakes as she tried her best to move with the beat. I watched her smile and laugh and soak in all the attention she was getting from random men at the bar. I decided at that moment I wasn't going to scream at her. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to cuss her out. I was just going to pretend like everything was effing peachy. I regained my composure. I forced my lips to curve into a smile. Standing from my seat, I joined her, swaying my hips. The girls followed us to the dance floor. Olivia raised an eyebrow at me and smiled back. She didn't know it yet, but her days were numbered. Okay, this is going to be the last chapter for real. I know I said that a while ago, but I was trying to find out where was a good place to end off. So we're going to do one more chapter and then we'll end off there. Chapter 57, Olivia. I can't believe we've been on a live for like 3 hours. After a few songs, we returned to our seats. I was surprised Shannon joined in on the dancing. Then again, rejection and desperation would make you do things completely and totally out of character. She hadn't checked her phone in a while. Shannon had clearly given up on her date showing up at all. Little did she know her date had shown. I let out a giggle and took another drink. Shannon needed to be reminded of her place in Buckhead, and what better way to remind her than to diminish her self-confidence. She did the same to me once upon a time. I can't wait to find out what Shannon did to Olivia, because Olivia keep hinting that Shannon did something to her. And Shannon do give me like pre-Olivia vibes where she be making like little snidey remarks, but she still ain't said what she did. And maybe when we find out what she did, we'll find out why she's so devious. But oh, okay, here you go. 4 years ago, at Buckhead's Gala of the Year, Shannon got drunk. Nothing has changed, and told everyone about my past, something I had confided to her. She told them how my father was arrested, how my family was slimy, and how he lost all of our money. She belittled me and ridiculed me the whole night, dragging me through the mud, rebelling. I was just ranting about, like, what did she do? And here you go. Reveling in it like it was a game. From that point on, people looked at Dean and me a little differently. We weren't the classy patrols. We were the smarmy patrols, and we ultimately fell into those roles because it's easy to become who people say you are. On top of that, for years, the women in Buckhead called me Nemo, aka New Money, a constant reminder that I wasn't like them. I could have spoken to her about it, explaining how it hurt me, but where is the fun in that? Forgiveness is boring, but revenge, now, that's a real thrill. Betray me once, and I will bury you with one shovel of dirt at a time. I heard Shannon a while back talking about online dating. From then on, I made it a point to routinely look her up on popular dating sites to see if she had created a profile. A few weeks ago, I struck gold when I discovered her. She never even questioned it. That's where women don't even ask questions. I wonder how long I could keep it going. Could I lure her somewhere? Or humiliate her to the point where she never be able to show her face again? Could I make her feel the way that she made me feel, forced into a role that I created for her? Or maybe I could finally unload the last spade of foil, the one that would keep her where she belongs, 6 feet below the rest of us. This was fun. Thanks for including me, Olivia, Shannon said with a smile. She wouldn't be thanking me if she knew the truth. Fun indeed. Anytime, I smiled back. So sorry your date didn't show. Yeah, that sucks. His loss, Keisha piped in. Men are dicks, Karen said. It wasn't a total loss. Jenny met a guy. I laughed. Actually, he was really nice. We exchanged numbers. Jenny took a drink. I gave her a puzzled look. Nice means zilch when it comes to dating. He's Has she learned nothing from being around us all these years? We don't date nice. We date rich. But then again, Jenny wasn't one of us. Good for you, girl. Keisha high-fived Jenny. If you say so, I rolled my eyes. I'm going to go settle the bill. Anyone wants anything else? They all shook their heads and thanked me as they should. I walked over to the waitress who was chatting with her coworker instead of serving us. I had already decided I was going to dock her tip. I shouldn't have had to come find her to settle my bill. I was a customer, the very wealthy customer, and therefore I deserve impeccable service. I tossed my black Amex card on the counter. Ring it up. Do you want to know the total? She asked meekly while her little coworker scattered out off. Look at me. Do I look like someone who asks how much? No, just run the card, I demanded, putting my hands on my hips and tapping my foot. She swiped the card, then she swiped it again and again. It says it's declined. She tilted her head. BS, run it again. She swiped the card again and again. Do you have another card? She asked, handing the black Amex over. I stamped my foot and took the card, shoving it back in my wallet. I handed her another card. She swiped and swiped. It's also declined. What the F? What the F? That's impossible. Run it again, you idiot. She swiped it once more, slowly as if she were mocking me. Decline. How do you want to pay for this? Her meek voice became more assertive. I grabbed the card from her and bolted for the door, not looking back at the waitress squawked. Hey, you have to pay. The limo was parked outside waiting for us. I jumped in, and before the driver could turn around and ask any questions, I told him to F and drive. Without hesitation, he stepped on it. 10 minutes later, the driver pulled up in front of my house. I threw a $20 bill at him and ran inside. I didn't have the same effect as my $100 bill. I groaned. Dean, where the F are you? My voice echoed throughout the house. I ran frantically from the foyer to the living room to the kitchen. Until I finally found my found him drinking scotch in his study without a care in the world. He sat up straight in his chair, startled to see me. You're home early, babe. Did you miss me? He winked. Don't get cute with me, Dean. Where the F is the money? I threw my purse on the ground. A few single-dollar bills fell out. What are you talking about? He set down his glass of scotch and furrowed his brow. Both my credit cards were declined tonight. Why? I threw my hands on my hips. You tell me right now. Don't worry about it, Olivia. I'll take care of it. Dean stood up and walked over to me. He put his hands around my waist and tried to pull me in for a hug, but I wasn't having any of it. I pushed him back with all my might. He stumbled backwards a few steps, bumping into the coffee table. I grabbed a glass mug from his desk and threw it at him as if I were pitching in the World Series. He narrowly ducked it and smashed into the bookshelf, smattering to pieces. His eyes widened as he looked at the damage and back at me. Are you effing crazy? I flicked off my heels and grabbed one from off the floor, throwing it at him in one clean swoop. He stepped aside and then hit the bookshelf. Tell me what the H is going on. I picked up a pink cup from his desk and cocked it back, ready to heave it. Just hold on. Put it down. I'll tell you. He flinched as I simulated throwing it at him, but instead I dropped it back on the desk, pins clattering everywhere. Money's a little tight. We had a screw up with our last shipment, a rather big screw up, so I'm having to foot those losses until we can make it up, he explained. He took a seat on the couch and patted the cushion next to him, motioning for me to come sit. Was he not gonna tell her that? Like, he could have told her that. I don't even know why I'm like trying to find empathy for her when she just be the one ruining everybody's life. Listen, I never cared what you did because the money was coming in, but now it's not. So I want to know what it is to you do, because you're clearly doing it well. I said as calmly as I possibly could. It still came out with a tinge of frustration. It's better that you don't know, babe. You have no idea what you're talking about. He put a hand on my shoulder and rubbed it. Oh, F off. I pushed his hand away. If you don't tell me what you do, I'm leaving you, Dean. Yeah, right. And go do what? You aren't worth anything and don't know how to do anything. You may as well be a child who still needs. With zero hesitation, I slapped him across his face as hard as I could. His face turned red as fresh blood, and I looked at it like he might hit me back. But then Dean hugged his head aside. I pressed my lips together. Fine. He looked at me and threw his hands up. Let's just say I moved goods in and out of Atlanta that law enforcement were frowned upon. What, like drugs? I furrowed my brow, among other things. Okay, so what? Are people not using drugs anymore? Is the man down? Is that why we don't have any effing money? No. Like I said, I ran into some issues with my last shipment, so the people I work for are having me pay for it. He dropped his head into his hands. I tried to make sense of everything he was telling me. We were broke forever, or was it temporary? What would people say when they found out? Who was I without money? Again, I'd be no mo, not Nemo, no money, not new money. Shannon would revel in it. How is it? How the f did this happen? I told myself this would never ever happen to me again. And at the moment, I felt like a teenage girl who had everything ripped away from her because of an effing dumb a man. Wait, what about our savings? I said, my face lit up. We had to have savings, investments, all that stuff. What savings? Dean laughed. Look at the way you live. The Olivia specialty is throwing $100 bills around. Don't you dare put this on me. You oversaw the money. And besides, I thought you were your own boss. Who the H are you working for? Who's making you pay for this? I want to know who this a-hole was. I want to know who this a-hole was that's messing with our money, our livelihoods. I unalive him. It doesn't matter. Everything is going to be fine. Just trust me. I'll take care of it. Dean put his hand on my thigh and rubbed it affectionately. I picked a spot on the wall furthest from us and focused on it. He wouldn't take care of it. I would take care of it. I couldn't trust a man to do a woman's job. So the book that we are reading is called One of Us is Dead. I'm going to leave this replay up. The replay is 3 hours though. You can speed it up. But we have 3 other parts. This is part 4. If you want to grab the book, I believe it's on Libby and it's probably on Audible or something like that. But yeah, we're on chapter 58 and I think it's like 70 chapters. So we'll be back tomorrow. I stay in Central Standard Time, so it's 12:25 right now. Tomorrow, or technically today, Thursday, technically it'll be Friday at 12:30 a.m. I was supposed to read yesterday, but I was so tired. I hope I'm not as tired tomorrow as I was yesterday so that I can read tomorrow. But thank you so much for joining. If you made it this far in the replay, thank you. You're a real one. I hope y'all have a good night, and I'll see y'all at the next one.